Okay, good evening, everyone. It's 5:30. I'm going to call the meeting to order, please. If you'd all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. For starters, I'm going to ask for a motion here to excuse Mallory. She is sick this evening.
I move to excuse our student representative Mallory this evening.
Second.
Perfect. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Galbraith?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Ms. Sunbit?
Yes.
Mr. Mabry?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is communications from parents, staff, and district residents. We had no one sign up to speak this evening. Do we have anyone online that is wishing to speak? Looking. Yeah. I'm just going to stare at you till you say something. Okay, good job. Okay, perfect. Then we are going to move on. Consent items. Can I get a motion to approve the consent items, please?
I move to approve consent items as written.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Can I just ask real quick, the school improvement plans will be posted now once they're approved, they'll be posted online?
So what we're planning to do, because they're really lengthy documents, is create kind of one-pagers that we would put on the school websites with kind of the pertinent information, and then the full plans are available for anybody who's interested.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, first, second, anything else? If not, I will call for the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Galbraith?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Ms. Sunbit?
Yes.
Mr. Mabry?
Yes.
And Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is superintendent and board member reports. Dr. Pierce.
Okay, thank you. I have 3 items this evening. One is a recognition item, one's a follow-up item, and one's a legislative item. So to start, I wanted to share that since the last board meeting, I was visiting, I've been out visiting schools as I do, and I've been to Southridge, Lincoln, Highlands, KDC, Ridgeview, Chinook, Amon Creek, and Desert Hills over the last couple of weeks. And, anytime I go to visit a school, I visit a number of classrooms with the principal. It's October, kids are learning, they're engaged. It's really a fun time to be out in the schools. And the other thing I do during my visits is sit down with the principal, discuss data, academic results, attendance, all sorts of data, and talk about the efforts that are going on in the school to improve student achievement. And so I wanted to take the opportunity tonight to share that. And it's October, which is National Principals Month. And so I wanted to formally recognize our outstanding leaders that we have in our buildings here in the district and read the proclamation from Governor Inslee. And it states the following. Whereas the Washington Senate has declared the month of October 2023 as National Principals Month in coordination with the efforts of the National Association of Elementary School Principals and the National Association of Secondary School Principals, working with the U.S. Congress to designate National Principals Month and resolutions thereof, and whereas principals and assistant principals play significant roles in our education system by creating hope for every student in their buildings, by leading culture, systems, and learning, and by working tirelessly each day as visionaries, assessment experts, community builders, public relations experts, budget analysts, facility managers, special programs administrators, and guardians of various legal, contractual, and policy mandates and initiatives. And whereas principals and assistant principals work collaboratively with families, teachers, and district officials to develop mission statements, set performance goals and objectives for schools to achieve educational excellence and maintain high curriculum standards and expectations for all students. And whereas the Association of Washington School Principals honors such exemplary principals and assistant principals who have succeeded in providing high-quality learning opportunities for students, as well as their exemplary contributions to the profession. And whereas to honor and recognize the contribution of all school principals and assistant principals to the success of each student in Washington schools, our most valuable resource, and to encourage residents of Washington to observe Principals Month with appropriate ceremonies and activities that promote awareness of the importance of school leadership and ensuring that every child has access to high-quality education. Now, therefore, I, Jay Inslee, Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby proclaim October 2023 as Principals Month in Washington, and I encourage all people in our state to join me in this special observance. So we happen to have one principal here this evening who's here for part of another presentation, and I'd like us to give a round of applause to all of our principals, and we would invite them to be here this evening. But they have a lot of evening obligations, and so as part of the recognition, we invite them to not be here, and except for Megan, and to just just to be recognized, not here, if that makes sense. So. My second item is a follow-up item, and the board will remember that we had a Chinook middle school student make public comment at the last meeting, advocating for the board to change the policy to allow for PG-13 movies to be shown in the middle schools. Our current policy allows them to be shown in high school, of course, with parent permission. And so the board asked me to find out some information, look into what neighbor districts' policies look like. And based on my research, our neighbor districts don't have any policy that specifies movie ratings by grade level. They do require parent permission, though. So that's what I've been able to find out. The student did email me today to get an update, and so I let him know that I would be sharing this update with the board this evening, and that the board would then determine whether or not you want to put the policy back on the agenda for discussion and potential amendment, but that's my update for you this evening. And then my third update is a legislative item. And I had emailed the board with some information regarding timelines for legislative priorities and the meetings with legislators. And we need to have a little discussion, and I need some direction. So what I'd like to suggest is that the board make a motion to amend the agenda to add legislative items to the other business as authorized by law portion of the meeting tonight. And that way it'll provide the opportunity for the board to have some discussion about the things I emailed about, and then I can move forward with getting meetings set and that kind of thing.
Okay, would you like us to make that motion now and get that out of the way?
That would be fabulous.
Perfect. Can I get, or how do I want to phrase this? Can I get a motion to add, what do I add? Add the legislative agendas to the other business as authorized by law portion.
May I just say so moved?
Perfect. Yeah, second? Okay.
Yeah, second.
Okay, perfect. May I roll call, can't speak. May I have the roll call vote, please?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is there a time that we supposed to allow for the public to know that we're making that change?
I believe we double checked, and we can make an amendment to add something to the agenda. There won't be any decisions made. The board won't be approving the legislative priorities or anything. It's really just a matter of a little bit of discussion about who wants to be in meetings and the timeline for when the board would adopt the legislative priorities document. So we think we're in good shape.
All right.
Can I get the roll call vote, please, Patty?
Mr. Galbraith?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Ms. Sunbeck?
Yes.
Mr. Mabry?
Yes.
And Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Anything else? That's it?
That's it.
Perfect, thank you. Okay.
Just so I attended all three of the career fairs at the high schools, was last 2 weeks ago, maybe. It was good to see everybody out there. There's a lot of kids at the tables, and it's fun to see the different vendors and stuff. Not sure who we provide feedback to or not, but I was a little, I guess, disappointed when I went to Kennewick, just because there was there was like no trade vendors there, like one. They seemed to be at the other one. So I just, it felt like Kennewick was like just four-year colleges and military. We're just missing like some other vendors for kids that are looking to either get jobs or trade. So, did that, and then had initial meeting. So I've been asked to speak the day before WASD. I've been asked to speak on a panel for the Pacific Research Institute there in Bellevue, and so had an initial meeting and just kind of got an idea of what I'll be speaking on. The panel's on how to be an effective school board member. So I'll be doing that, and that's it.
Will that be at WASDA or?
No, it's the day before, yeah.
Where is that being held at?
The Hilton Bellevue.
Is it?
So it's just down the road. There's a registration process.
It's like free to sign up.
Yeah. So.
I could probably send it to you, Ron.
Okay.
Thank you, Gabe, or Micah, excuse me.
Yeah, I'll try to send that link to you, Ron. Yeah, so I also attended the career fair, job fairs, and I had the same observation. Like, I actually noticed just across the board, I felt like there were less vendors there this year in all the schools. I remember last year it seemed like the entire gyms were filled, and now this time it was just half barely. And each school, does differently with classes and stuff, but that was my observation as well. I will say that one of the reasons I think why it's important for us to go into schools. I'll tell you a quick little story. I was at one of the job fairs. I won't say which one, but I noticed a kid that I knew kind of wandering back and forth. And so I went over to talk to him, and he was just about out the door, and I kind of actually jogged over and tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, how you doing?" We started chatting, and he told me he was really interested in being in law enforcement. And then I said, "Okay, well, are there any booths here that would interest you?" And he's like, "Yeah, that one down there." And I said, well, have you talked to him? He's like, "I'm too nervous." And I said, well, let's just go down together. So we went down together, and I was able to introduce him, and we took down his information and stuff. And so, I think it's like, if I wasn't there, and so any one of you guys would have done the same thing, but that's why it's important for us to be in school, so we can kind of reach these kids at their level. So I just encourage us to continue to do that. And that's it. Yield my time.
Thank you. Ann?
So we've had one WASDA networking hour since our last meeting. I also went to the Kennewick and the Southridge Career and College Expos. And the reason that you didn't see very many tradespeople is because there will be one in the spring, and that will be primarily trades and trade schools. So the ladies were telling me about that. When I was at the Southridge one, it was great because the TriTech construction trade students were there, and they were talking with prospective students, and one of the instructors said, "You see that kid that's talking?" And he was super animated, and he was just really giving a lot of information. She goes, "That kid never talks in class," but he was just so excited about sharing that he was just having a lot of good emotions about that, and I thought that was great that other students could see that. Then I went to the Phoenix Family Info Night, and they were student-made movies. Oh my gosh, they were amazing, and I probably can't remember even half of them, but they did a ton of research, and then they had to make it, and they would work with other people, but each student had their own movie, and parents were just blown away, as was I. It was very impressive, and I learned a lot of things about blood transfusions. Did you know they used to use milk for blood transfusions? It didn't work out very well, so they don't do it anymore. But these students really learned a lot of interesting things. I had coffee with a business.
Wait. They pumped milk in you, and you gave what?
They tried to use that as a substitute for blood because they thought milk was a life-giving property thing. So you should go see the movie over there.
Who you think thought that was a good idea?
I'm not quite sure. They did say who it was, though. I don't remember.
Must have been another school district.
I think it was in the 1500s.
Farmers in America.
Yeah. Coffee with a constituent, another business person that, again, is asking the same question. And I know you speak to all these groups where business people are there, but they're just, I don't know if people aren't sharing that, or maybe these are business people who don't get to go to those or whatever. But the questions about, what's going to happen with the property values and then taxes. And so maybe we can somehow, I don't know, step out into the community more than you already do and somehow get more information out there. And then lots of calls and emails regarding our school board elections.
Thank you. Ron?
I don't have too much. One thing I want to ask about though was Pasco has this great program where they're building a house. And I wonder if they would be interested, I wish the student rep was here, have guest appearances from other schools. You know, it's their program, it's their idea, so no way am I saying take over their idea. But if we had guest appearances, like Southridge High School spends a day helping to build a house, that type of
Our construction trades kids work with
Habitat for
Habitat.
Humanity.
Yeah.
But they don't,
So we-
they don't build their own, like in Pasco, they build a house every year. It's a
Okay.
bulldog house.
Bulldog
it's called.
House, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know TriTech,
Does with Habitat.
they do with Habitat, so I'll find out a little bit more, and I'll
Yeah.
find out a little bit more about what Pasco does, and
Yeah,
that's
just
interesting, yeah.
just be a nice little community joint thing. Just like I said, don't take over their program. We're not advocating that at all. Just be guest appearances.
There you go. Well, TriTech would be perfect for that with the construction management, electrical.
Yeah.
Everything.
We've got every little piece there. That would be, so really, that's a cool idea. Thank you. Well, I have really nothing to report. I've been traveling like a crazy person here, so I have not had much chance to attend much of anything here in the last 10 days, so I'll do better.
Mike, can I just,
Yes, sir.
one quick thing I forgot. Dr. Pierce, so I've heard firsthand now from two people in the last couple of days, and then a couple kind of backwinded, but there's just the concern of safety around Kennewick with, unfortunately, the apartments across the street, and there's been some lockdowns and stuff, and so I just wanted to get that out kind of on the radar. I'm not sure if there's something we can do with KPD or the SRO there, or just, it's just come up in discussion the last week or so. I think there was just something this week where they locked down after school because there was a potential shooting, so just wanted to put that on everyone's radar.
Right, yeah, thank you. And so when, unfortunately,
Yeah.
there will be times where there's things happening in the community in close proximity to a school, and KPD is really, really good about, alerting us right away and recommending, that the school goes into lockdown, and it could happen at any time during the day. So we really take our guidance and direction from KPD. If they say a school needs to go into lockdown because something that's happening in the neighborhood, we go into lockdown and get that communicated out. So, it's tricky sometimes when it happens, when it's like in an after-school time, because it's just less, there's more movement on the campus, and it's less sort of like everybody's in a classroom and that kind of thing. But thank you for raising that, and we can loop back with them to see if there's anything else we should know about or be doing. But you're right, it has happened a couple times recently.
Yeah, to see if maybe they're already throwing an extra patrol around there at,
Yeah.
after school or something, and then we can at least share that when we get the question back. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I piggyback on that? The one at Southridge that occurred during lunch,
Mhm.
that our students are not always really great about having breakfast, even though it's provided, and I'm sure parents try to provide it too. So when lunchtime came and they couldn't eat, and it was quite a while before they could. I don't know that there's much that we can do, but I know a lot of teachers the next day were spending a lot of money buying large boxes of granola bars, whatever, to keep in their rooms because it is happening more frequently. And so I don't know, can nutrition services provide boxes of granola bars for people to have for emergencies or something like that?
I can look into that. I do know that was a pretty unusual
It was
one.
very unusual, but
that-
we've had 3 at lunch now in the last like 8-9 months.
So, I think you're right. I guess on the plus side, now that breakfast is provided to
Right.
everyone, we're actually seeing quite a bit of increase and in Southridge in particular, they've got a good system of having so many. I was there just recently and saw it personally. So many different stations for kids to get breakfast in the morning that they're seeing a real uptick. And then, yeah, it was just so unusual. The lockdown timing came where, because of something that was happening in the community, KPD did not want, students leaving campus. And so, I do want to give a little shout out to Nutrition Services because they were able to like mobilize to get a plan together to feed all of the students. Because of course, many
Later,
students, later, a little bit later, but many students in high school, don't eat school lunch, they go off campus. So those situations can be really tricky. I mean, it's always safety first, we're always going to make sure we do what KPD is doing, but I can, follow up on if there's any sort of, I don't know if that's allowable under the
Yeah, I don't
food
know.
rules and all of that, but I can follow up.
Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Okay, next up are reports and discussions. First on the list is the Children's Reading Foundation of Mid-Columbia. Matt Scott will be, couldn't tell Dr. Pierce.
Yeah, well, Matt Scott is getting the presentation ready to go. I just wanted to say a couple kind of words of lead in. We are really fortunate tonight because we have two long-standing community partners here to present, and Matt's going to do the formal introductions here in just a moment, but I wanted to share appreciation for the Children's Reading Foundation of the Mid-Columbia and for Communities and Schools for being here to present to the board tonight. The district partnership with the Reading Foundation dates back to the 95-96 school year. So that means that they have been our valued partner for 28 years. Yeah, and the district partnership with Communities and Schools dates back to 2015, which means they've been our valued community partner for 8 years. And this past year, they were recognized as our Community Partner of the Year. So it's wonderful to have both organizations here. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, so you can turn it back over to Matt.
Mr. Scott will be presenting.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. So yeah, we're going to come to you tonight with a quick goal report around our goal for our community being important collaborators. And so within our annual objectives for this year, we have some things that are continued. One of the things we want to continue is to strengthen our partnerships with a number of our community organizations. But tonight we do want to highlight Communities and Schools of Ben Franklin and the Children's Reading Foundation of Mid-Columbia. And it's really important to recognize that we attempt to value and appreciate our community partners through providing them access to our district facilities and to recognize community partners and district volunteers through various events and programs. And I'll put a little plug in for our November 14th event. We have a breakfast where we are recognizing and providing an opportunity to update our community partners on our school district and just kind of where things are going. And so we do have events that we are focused on really highlighting the strong collaboration we do have with community members. So now tonight is one of my favorite reports because it's a report I won't be giving much of. I will be turning it over now to Leanne and Aaron with the Children's Reading Foundation of Mid-Columbia, allow them to introduce themselves and present on their work.
I like bringing visuals, so good evening. I'm Leanne Lours Purcell, and I'm guessing a click. I'm the Executive Director for the Children's Reading Foundation of the Mid-Columbia. Erin Lee is here. She's our Educational Programs Director, and we'll tag team a little bit with our presentation. But like Matt said, we've been here, or sorry, Dr. Pierce, was it you? 28 years we've been partners, and some of the names that are on the dedication plaque out in the hallway were some of the people who founded this organization. So we are very appreciative of our partnership with you. Our mission is threefold, and our partnership with KSD actually touches on all three of these. The first is to encourage and educate parents and caregivers about their important role in raising their child for kindergarten. And our program, Ready for Kindergarten, directly targets that goal. We also support schools in ensuring that students are reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. And our program called Team Read targets that goal. And then last, we facilitate community involvement by helping young readers be successful. We put on a lot of events to encourage and educate parents and to give books away. And we'll touch on some of those things that we are out in the Kennewick community to support that one. So like I said before, we've got these two programs we're going to kind of dive into tonight. The one called Ready for Kindergarten is a kindergarten readiness program that's for parents with young children from birth to 5. And Team Read is a one-on-one volunteer-run tutoring program. So Ready for Kindergarten is a program where parents and caregivers sign up for e-learning modules. They can start this program as soon as their child is born. So if they start when they're born, they can have a session in fall, winter, and spring with different learning targets, and they can continue that until their child reaches kindergarten, which means they would have 15 sessions. The toolkit that they get each session is different. They're high quality tools. We call this play with a purpose. We show parents and caregivers how to take the tools and the toys, how to use them at home. They're developmentally appropriate, again, all the way. This is the 4-5. Yeah. So that they're hitting learning targets all the way through, that by the time they start kindergarten, they're ready for kindergarten. We know that early intervention is the best kind of intervention, and studies show that if a student is starting kindergarten at grade level, they will likely stay at grade level for the remainder of their school years. We have dedicated outreach to ensure parent engagement, and I'll talk about some of the partnerships with that and the community partners. Our impact report from 22-23 is that we had 2,500 parent participants. So we did meet our goal. We provide Ready to both English and Spanish speakers. Parents and families have the option for both languages. Migrant and refugee families. We have a partnership with B5. You can see some of those pictures are from our B5 families. We partner with ECAP for economically vulnerable families, children with developmental needs, at-risk kindergarten students and families, and then we have referral streams with Keewaydin, the Children's Developmental Center, WIC. We partner with TriTech. That's a unique partnership where we can go in and help their students who are learning to become childcare providers understand the tools, and then the KSD Migrant Program as well. Just some data for you to highlight, again, who we serve. The pie chart kind of shows the demographic. We have parents do a survey at the end of their e-learning module, and they can identify ethnicity, income, and we believe that this is a very accurate representation of the community that we serve. We also have the program called Ready in Kinder. So we've partnered with the following, there's some cut off, aren't there? Well, Amistad, Sagecrest, Fuerza, Eastgate. Help me out, Erin. Mm-hmm. For Ready in Kinder, where we're providing the kindergarten teachers Ready in Kinder sets, and then they're equipping their students and families to take that home as well. So end of year survey results with Ready for Kindergarten. Did you have problems accessing the workshop? So that was a big, we were in person and then we had COVID and now we're e-learning. And so we want to make sure that the families that we're serving have easy access and are able to access the technology. And 90% said that no, they didn't have any problems with that. The e-learning modules can be on a phone, a laptop, an iPad. It takes about an hour to go through. The parents and families have to complete the modules before they come and pick up their tools. And 100% of the participants indicated that they would recommend the program. And in the 6 years that Erin has been running, she's never had a single parent say that they wouldn't recommend the program. Just a quick quote from a Ready parent. I will let you read that. And some cute Ready kiddos. Again, from birth to 5, the goal is to have them ready so that when they start kindergarten, they're at grade level. And then the second program to share about is Team Read. Team Read provides one-on-one tutoring for students. Brought a sample of the booklet. This is new this year. We're piloting this newer booklet. We were in 9 schools last year. We're in 10 this year. Erin will talk about that. We have dedicated site coordinators. Each school has their own site coordinator for that school to coordinate volunteers, to work on outreach and oversight for the whole program. Last year, we served 377 students, and then you can see the breakdown of the kindergarten through 3rd grade. We had some that withdrew or transferred, and then we had 44 graduates, which is up. Last year was more graduates than normal, for a total of 4,025 total hours that our volunteers put in to those kids. And what a typical session looks like is that the teacher is identifying students who need a little bit of extra time with shared reading, with a trusted, caring adult, working on some phonics, some decoding, some sight words. And it was Team Read, when it originally started, really was from the idea that there's a lot of kids out there who aren't quite, they don't quite need RTI, they're not in the intervention kids, but they don't get read to at home. So how can we solve that problem? So volunteers are coming in and spending time getting to know the kids, what their likes and dislikes are, how they can motivate them. And the kids are thrilled to know that day after day, a couple times a week, their person is coming for them and starts to get to know them, and they miss it when they're not there. So this is the booklet that the volunteers get to use and work through. We train them. We do several in-person trainings. The site coordinators are there to train their volunteers. I don't think I'm getting ahead of myself. And so one of the goals was more hands-on training. And so we've been able to do that as well. Our end of the year survey results for Team Read, 95% of the teachers indicated that their students made substantial or exceptional progress. And we do track beginning of year scores, end of year scores. We ask teachers to give us some information. We don't do reading testing on the kids ourselves, but we do like to know that did the student make progress throughout the year? Is the program working? As a teacher, we had 100% of the teachers indicate that they would want to use Team Read again. So again, that statistic sort of speaks for itself, that year over year, teachers are wanting to put their kids into the program, and that they trust that when we're pulling a child out of a class for 30 minutes, we're utilizing that 30 minutes well. And again, 100% of our participants indicated, the principals, that they had a positive experience and that they found Team Read appropriate for the school and would like to continue. You can go ahead and read that quote and look at those pictures. This was from Natalie McKay, principal at Sagecrest. It's just really nice to know that students who might not be getting read to at home and who just need the little extra bit of one-on-one attention are getting what they need. And then aside from those programs, we also are in Kennewick a lot with these other programs. First Teacher Libraries is a program that we're sort of wrapping up right now. We offer a 75 book library to any first year teacher in the district. And we're having a lot of fun giving those boxes out. Teachers come to our class or to our portable in Canyon View, and we give them these boxes, and they're so thankful to have 75 books that we've curated specially for their grade level and their teaching. Books for babies, we deliver books to Trios Hospital and Columbia Birthing Center to ensure that every new mother or parent going home has at least one book of their own to read with their child. Stop the Summer Slide. We know that during those summer months, students can regress if they're not continually reading or being read to together with their families. So we gave out over 10,000 books, and we were present at just about every single event, making connections with families. Resolution Read is coming up. It's our New Year program. We ask families to resolve to read 20 minutes a day together with their children, and by signing up, we'll give them 12 books for each of the 12 months. And then you can see we're at open houses, we're at summer reading programs, we try to do, be present at free lunch programs, back to school events, all of those things. Just some great pictures of what we do. Margarita and Nancy Kerr. Margarita's out in the community all the time. Nancy Kerr is a founder. Kids picking books. They just have so much fun choosing books that look good to them to go home. And then this was a teacher at Fuerza. She was a first teacher this last year. And then Erin's going to come talk about goals now for this current year.
So I met you all last year, so I run both the Ready for Kindergarten program and Team Read. So kind of our goals for this year, again, our contract goal is that 2,500 parent participants. So we'll continue with that. I'd really like to see an increase in our Spanish speaking participants. So I kind of have set a goal for 15% increase. She showed a picture of Margarita Gonzalez. She's my community outreach coordinator, and so she kind of cultivates those relationships with our Spanish families, and she's on her phone constantly. She's constantly texting, constantly calling. So we'd like to increase that by 15%. And then of course I always try to find the little nooks and crannies of community partnerships just to get the information out about Ready for Kindergarten in Kennewick. So we're always looking to build those community partnerships so that we can get the word out and make sure that parents are participating. So that's for Ready. For Team Read, where Leanne showed you the student booklet, I kind of piloted a new student booklet that kind of helps the tutors know a little bit more of what to do in the session, but also it's very interactive for the student. So it allows students to, this is their booklet, and they get to take it home at the end of the year. It shows progress, it shows what they did with their tutors. So it just kind of makes the student engaged in their learning process with the Team Read tutor. And of course, we're aligning with everything that we learned. Leanne and I went out last year and the year before to talk to reading specialists throughout KSD, teachers, principals, to gain that information. So what's in there comes from your staff, essentially, as to what the direction in which we should have gone. We added Amistad, which was one of the goals last year, and gangbusters. I have over 20 volunteers there. The Kiwanis is heavily involved in Amistad, and she has 31 students just out the gate. So, and that'll increase as we pick up volunteers throughout the year. So that's been amazing start. Normally Team Read schools we kind of have to cultivate, but to have that many volunteers out the gate is wonderful. The goal is 370 students. So we're in 10 schools now. So the hope is to get around 37 to 40 students per school. And then increase in-person training and site visits. So we have a Team Read manager and myself, and we're going out making sure, kind of doing the supervisory part and doing individual trainings with volunteers and also with their teams. So that's one of our goals this year, is to just make sure that they know, if they get stuck working with a student, that they can ask those questions and we can answer them. So that's our goals for this year, at least for those two programs. Yeah. So we wanted to know if you had any questions for us. Sure.
This one.
I remember way back when I was in school, there was special programs, and sometimes, first of all, you've done a great job. Don't let me get away from that. But this question is, sometimes there was a stigma among the kids if you get pulled out of the class. So is there a way that you can pull a kid out of a class without having that stigma that they need special?
So with Team Read, it's a little bit different because what it looks like to the kiddo is that a really cool community member is coming and they get a special thing.
Cool. Good.
So
They're so excited
yeah.
to go.
And we also have, if a volunteer comes and their student is not available, we have kind of an alternate list, but we don't want to waste volunteers' time. So oftentimes we also will say to the, if the volunteer's there, the teacher will say, who would like to go out to Team Read? They all raise their hand.
Okay.
So I understand your point, definitely. But I think they look at it just in a little different light. It's that relationship with that figure. They get to go out, they get to have some fun.
Good.
They perceive it as we're having fun, and then they go back.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different than like a reading specialist or, they have a different viewpoint on it.
Good.
My experience in the KSD schools recently too is that kids are getting pulled often for different things, and it's
Right.
walk to read, or it's RTI, or they're doing reading groups, or they have speech, or and so it's just kind of common to stand up and go complete the class.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So I love the stats and the data, the information.
Yeah.
That's one of my, I want to always see how it's working, if it's working, and can we measure that? I think it's really important. You're in 10, we'll start with with the Ready for Kindergarten. You mentioned that sometimes I think what you said was you have these kits and then you'll actually give them to families. I assume it's probably families who have kids in this elementary school already.
So
And they're
in
given to
Ready, yeah, Ready in Kinder is kind of a branch off of Ready for Kinder. So I think you're speaking about the Ready in Kinder.
Well, I'm ready for kindergarten. So I'm
Okay.
actually, my question where I'm getting to is how do we get this information to the kids? Like, how do we get that to the families and to the kids, and how do they know to enter into this program that's available? You know?
So we advertise a lot, and Robin's here. Robin and they plug it. I know you guys have seen it all
Yeah.
over media.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of referral streams, so we make those key connections to preschools. They have our flyers to WIC, the health department, all TCCH. We blanket our flyers all over the
And we're working
community.
through like the current principals of elementary schools also to
Mhm.
push that down to their families and to their
Yeah.
kids and siblings and stuff.
And it's all on their e-flyers too.
Good.
Parent Square, it's going out into Parent Square. Robin's done some pushes for me at key times because we're seasonal. So we always have to do a push at the beginning of the year, push at the middle of the year, and push at the end.
And do you feel like, oh, go ahead.
During open houses,
Yeah.
Marguerite
Oh,
and
yeah.
Aaron try to hit, they can't be in two places at once, but try to hit the majority of the open houses that are going on in Kennewick. And then sometimes also for a kinder registration, they'll come back and see that, yes, if there's a family registering for kindergarten, they likely have a younger brother and sister, let's get them into.
Do you feel like it's pretty evenly distributed between the 17 elementary schools that we have, or is there some that we don't quite have?
That's unique because I don't, when they come to us, they're 0 to 5.
Right.
So I don't know what their neighborhood school is unless they register saying what their neighborhood school is. But we tend to be at the open houses. And yeah, I pick up, around 10 per school at that type of venue. I could look into that. I could see if there's some way to track that information.
Yeah, there's certain schools that are killing it, and other schools that we see kids coming into the school and they're just they haven't
Right.
been doing that.
Haven't been doing
Yeah, they haven't been doing that, and then maybe that is like early intervention, right? So if we have some schools we know that maybe are a little behind, then the earlier we start, the earlier we.
Absolutely.
Right?
Right.
So it's identifying
So that's
that.
kind of where Ready in Kinder comes in too. The schools that we utilize the Ready in Kindergarten program in kindergarten. So what ends up happening is those key schools, they identify students that need that extra help, and then they kind of work. We do some in-person workshops, like tomorrow or Saturday, I'm going out to Sagecrest, and they're going to do a Ready in Kinder program. She's identified those students, their parents are coming, and they get the 4-5 kit, right? But they've already entered kindergarten. So that's kind of catching those kids that are not, whether it's through WA Kids or whatever, they're not quite there yet.
Gotcha.
And then giving the parents the tools. In terms of tracking, it's hard to track unless in the registration process, kindergarten registration process that you all have, it would be hard to know. I mean, it could be something where you ask a yes or no question. Did you attend a Ready for Kindergarten? Did you participate in the Ready for Kindergarten program? Then you might be able to track that a little bit better.
Well, I know we have like a really, really smart team, so I just think
know,
that would be
yeah.
a really good thing to kind of like
That would be
look at,
really
understand.
interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you understand why. And then just a couple more questions, I'll be quick. Languages, like, you mentioned you have a Spanish, is that a Spanish reader? Do you need more? Like, how do you expand? How do you get more readers? How do you get more different languages?
In Ready for Kindergarten? Or for
Well, I
Teen
guess I'm
Read?
switching to Team Read now,
Okay.
sorry, yeah.
All right. It is very difficult to get bilingual volunteers.
And I'll say too, we're in Fuerza, we're in Amistad, we're in
Eastgate.
Eastgate. Teaching a child to read in English is very different than teaching them to read in Spanish. And so the curriculum itself is geared toward teaching a child to read in English.
Yeah.
And so we do have volunteers and site coordinators. We had a partnership with MCP, their Spanish speakers in high school. They were taking their high school classes, walked over to help tutor. That's still, they can communicate in Spanish, but the curriculum itself is how to teach reading in English.
Gotcha. Which is that we live in this country, which we hope everybody can
Absolutely.
speak English. Yeah. And then the last question I think I have is how are they picking the books? And you alluded to there's like a curriculum, but how do the kids pick the books every time, or is it
At Team Read?
yeah, Team Read?
So oftentimes we'll get some direction from the teacher. They fill out a student profile, so we kind of know where the student's at. And then each school has their own Team Read library, and it's based on grade and levels. So that tutor can go to the site coordinator or whatever and look at that profile, know where that kiddo is, but then the child can kind of pick the book that they're going to read that day.
Sure.
Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
it does. So the child picks it. Yeah.
Yes.
For the shared reading portion, yeah.
Yeah.
Then there's like a decodable and a word work portion that's based on their actual reading level. The shared reading can be slightly above their reading level because
Or
they're kind of
really
primary.
whatever. Yeah, whatever they want to do.
And yeah, and no social agendas, just reading, right? We're just
Just
reading
reading.
books.
Just reading.
Just
I love that.
reading.
I love that.
Literacy.
Thank you.
Any questions, Kate?
Yeah, just one for each. So ready for kindergarten. You mentioned kindergarten, you mentioned ready in kindergarten.
Mhm.
Do we have thoughts to expand that to all our kindergarten students that come in, where a teacher can say, hey, this person needs some additional help? Can we reach out? I'm assuming you want to say yes, but it's a matter of funding and volunteers or whatever, right?
Right. For Ready in Kinder, we kind of target the schools that are in need, right? And I have to have a kindergarten teacher be the point. So in order to work with me to identify kiddos and stuff. So it really varies. Yeah, we can expand anything you all want us to expand, but those are the key schools that have requested the program year over year, and it's worked out well.
So you need a kindergarten POC at each school if they wanted to bring that into a school
Right.
to offer.
The other thing to consider, and I'm just throwing this out there, the Ready in Kindergarten is a 0 to 5 program. So oftentimes when we go in Ready in Kinder, it's the 4-5 age level. So I rely on those kindergarten teachers because what they do when we work in partnership, they're able to talk with parents about what are the kindergarten standards and how can you utilize Ready in Kindergarten to meet those. So for instance, in Ready in Kindergarten, our 4-5, one of the targets that 15 letter names, right, and sounds. Well, the kindergarten standard for that is higher. So that it's good to have that kindergarten teacher input so that, so I don't know if you want to do all of it just because I'm not against it, but it is geared towards a 4-5-year-old.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if the availability is there for our kindergarten teachers at all the schools to
Right.
bring
If they want.
some of those students
Yes.
that need it, because to your point, how many families are, single student families? There's probably a lot
Right.
with younger siblings and stuff that may not have caught on to the program, and then
Right.
boom, now we've got, some
More
younger
families,
siblings
right.
hooked into it. So I just was curious if we can.
It
what
would be
we
nice to
need.
capture, what we try to do in Ready in Kinder is capture the kiddos that the teachers are identifying after WAGHIDS assessments
Mhm.
that they need that help. And then those ideally would be the ones that we would work with in Ready in Kinder.
And then just for Team Read is a similar question. So that program, again, we could get that into all the elementary schools with obviously we need volunteers and funding, but
Mhm.
that could be a solution we could do.
That would be really fun, yeah.
I obviously there's roadblocks, but
I mean, a lot of it depends on volunteership.
Volunteers, yeah.
so that,
Yeah.
I guess that's another question. I think we had like 4,000 volunteers last year in the district. Have we communicated to that group to say, hey, we've got this amazing program if you're interested in, because what is it, an hour a week? Is that the commitment
That's
for?
minimum.
Yeah, minimum hour a
I
week.
do have
so-
some volunteers that, will be there from 9 to noon.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah, so
bless their hearts.
I know, we have some amazing, amazing volunteers.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Diane?
I just want to say thank you because I was an instructor for Ready for Kindergarten when we did it the old school way.
Yeah.
And there were some real positives about being in person.
Yeah.
But I really, really loved, and I know we went to online because of COVID, but it just makes it so much easier for so many more families.
Oh, yes.
And I appreciate that. And they can do it on their own time and their own space. And so I appreciate you doing that. And I also, when I was working in the schools, I watched those team read people. And most of the volunteers were grandpa age kind of people. And so the kids love that because we've called them grandma and grandpa. And you're right, the kids miss the adults if they're not there and vice versa. And that just sets up reading aside, it sets up another trusted adult kind of person that we talk about a lot in our district. So thank you so much for what you do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be continuing on, Mr. Scott.
We will be continuing on. So next up, we have our some representatives from communities in the School of Benton Franklin. So we have both a presentation in regards to communities and schools, but then we'll also highlight one of our schools, which is Sunset View Elementary. So we'll have Amy, Katie, and Sunset View Principal Megan Bivet talking with us about communities and schools.
Hello, good evening. Let me make sure this works. I know that Dr. Pierce mentioned this earlier, but we just wanted to say thank you again for recognizing us as your 2023 Community Partner of the Year. This is a pic of our team and our Kennewick team. So we are currently in 11 schools throughout Kennewick School District. This is our 8th year. We've gone, I think we piloted one school that very first year and have grown ever since. One of the things that we value in regards to the number of schools that we have in the Kennewick School District is that we can develop feeder programs. So if we have students who are moving from elementary to middle, from middle to high, we can follow those students and families. And our ultimate goal, obviously, is graduation and beyond, and having our students and our families be successful. We have a unique model. Communities and Schools has been around. This is its 46th year nationally. Here in our area, we are 9 years in. But some of the supports that we provide throughout our schools that we are in are some of the things like social emotional learning. We know that from the pandemic, we are working very closely with students who are learning some regulation tools and getting ready to work with their peers so that they can be academically successful. One of the things that we feel is very important is home visits. We like to meet families where they are. And so if we have a student who may be having an issue getting to school or some issues while at school, we like to meet the families where they are. And sometimes that's just more comfortable going to them versus having them come into the building and looking and talking to them about what barriers they might be experiencing. We have had a lot of need very recently, as in the last 2 weeks, in regards to housing support and emergency assistance for electronics and rent or electrical support and housing. We just received a grant last week for $5,000 and it was spent within 3 days because of the need that we already had within our community. We're trying to help families with transportation options. We know that with the economy and the prices of gasoline, we've been working really hard to get at least some of those vouchers out to families, gas cards, bus passes, just so that they have an opportunity to do those things. All of our SSCs have a partnership with their ATP chairs within their building to help plan and execute parent engagement nights. And again, college and career readiness, I'll touch on that in just a little bit, but those are just some of the supports that we are providing on a regular basis. So last year for communities and schools, we were able to provide 29,000 plus supports to students as a whole school. Our staff at the 11 schools supported a little over 1,800 case managed students. On average, our SSCs have a caseload of 45 by the end of the school year. We were able to engage 8,000 parents last year, and then 99% of our students stayed in school that we were working with last year. This is just for KSD and, or sorry, our agency. And then 89% of our students were able to improve in academics, and 73% of those students were able to improve attendance. So we know that those are some of the key issues, and that is what we really strive to work towards, or those are 3 areas of support that we target. For Kennewick School District, this is a graphic of the number of students that we were able to support in just our 11 sites in Kennewick. We broke it down by gender, we broke it down by race. In our Kennewick School District, we were able to provide over 1,100 whole school supports, which is more than 3,500 hours. We were able to serve 45,000 parents. That is a duplicated number based on the number of supports that we provided throughout the year, since we are there the entire school year. And then basic needs. Overall, we were able to provide over 17,000 basic needs in Kennewick just to our students and families here. We were able to take in over $700,000 of in-kind donations last year to support our community that we serve, because we are in 5 districts throughout our community. Some of the things, I would say, got a little bit shifted. But behind that picture, it says attendance, but community schools in action. One of our target areas in many of our schools and their school-wide goal is attendance. And so our student support coordinators work very hard to find fun, creative ways to get students through the door in their classes, learning and being prepared to make that growth. Some of the things, you can see a donut party or do not be absent. This was a couple weeks ago over at Seven Hills. This is Miss Daniela and the new principal over there. And they greeted students, if their whole class was there on time and ready to learn, they got greeted with donuts. And it was very exciting for those kiddos. They loved it. The picture in the middle is Attendance Heroes. That's over at Eastgate. And so just providing some of those incentives, setting individual goals with students, and then sticker charts. Some of the things that we do to support parents around attendance is really talking to them about bedtime routines and just what does it look like to be successful, putting the iPad down, just trying to help them so that they're getting a good night rest and that they're ready to come to school and ready to go. One of the things that we just this last week was Unity Day, and so we know that we want students to feel safe, and so we really like to, our SSEs are really looking at bullying prevention. These are a couple of the things that have happened throughout, just so students really feel safe, value, and known. The share of slice of kindness is one of my favorites. That bulletin board, just sprinkling some love there, guys. And then again, I want to touch on, you guys were discussing earlier about your college and career nights that were recently happening. A lot of our secondary SSEs have been working really closely with a lot of our colleges. Seven Hills last year was able to take a group of their 8th grade students to CBC, helping expose them to what is offered at CBC. They got to go to the planetarium. They're really excited for the pizza. We're finding that those middle schooler kiddos really like their food. And then we are partnering with CBC for helping families and students learn more about the FAFSA process. It is changing this year. And so we want to make sure we do Breakfast for Success, partnering with the other additional partners within Kennewick School District to make it very successful, such as Gear Up, the migrant program as well. We do have an upcoming event where we are partnering with CBC for a financial aid and career resource night, and we're inviting partners throughout the community so that students, again, have that exposure to what is out there. We really want our community partners to talk to our students about the path that they took to get to where they are, because not everybody takes that path. And so we will have different types of careers available. So some of the trades, we have a few, I'm trying to think off the top. I just went blank on that one, guys, I'm sorry. But we're hoping that we can get more families in there. And then most of our high schools are doing fast food nights once a month or every other month to make sure that students are keeping up on that FAFSA process. And so I'm going to turn it over. This is Katie Toth. She is our SSC at Sunset View.
Hello and good evening. This is my third year at Sunset View. I was the one who brought the first rolling in of CIS into Sunset View, and it's been such a great journey to work with them and collaborate with them. Sunset View is a Kids at Hope school, and that's something that really aligns with our values, that we believe all kids and all families are successful and no exceptions. And so it's been really great to work alongside professionals and educators who really live that out and not just say it as a pledge every day, but they really work towards seeing how we can remove barriers to students and families and make sure that they do feel safe, valued, and known. So you'll see some of the different types of supports that I provide there. I've really worked hard to engage parents. That has been something that we've seen over the last 3 years. The parent engagement has increased slowly but surely. A lot of families have had poor experiences in school due to their own experiences or traumas or family crises that happened. And so one of my goals is to really make sure that parents know that there's a bridge there and that Kennewick wants them involved. They value that. They want to see their kids thrive and also the families thrive too. So I'll go a little bit. Do you have my phone? Oh, yep.
Okay.
Well, I will just talk about some of the supports. We did have another slide. Something that's really important is that I believe there are 3 pillars of support that we're providing at Sunset View. The first is student-centered. We want students to come in engaged, and our school goal is attendance. And attendance is kind of hard to support student-wise because a kindergartner can't necessarily bring themselves to school. They can't drive themselves. They can't provide the transportation that they need to get there. So a lot of it is parent-based, but my goal when working with students is to make sure that they're engaged and motivated. So attendance is more than just getting them through the door. It's making sure that when they sit down that they're engaged, that they have no barriers inside the school, and that they feel safe and ready to learn. And whether that means giving them snack breaks or talking with them at recess and really walking through the things that are impacting their day. Those are the most meaningful and impactful supports that I see. And it's often the littlest ones that are not typically seen or shown. I am working on providing some attendance groups this year, and that's been a really great opportunity. I had my first one this week. And so we had some from kindergarten to 5th grade too. We're really working on just providing a safe space to share their successes and set goals and talk through things about why they like school and what challenges they see at school and how we can really work towards succeeding there. Then we are also working with parents. I've been providing a lot of parent newsletters and home visits. Like Amy said, we really like to meet parents where they're at. And I can't really express how much it changes your perspective when you go to an apartment at 4:30 at night after school and, the parents are struggling. They've just had a crisis and they're crying over being handed like a can of food, something that we often take for granted when we do have financial stability, but that has been the biggest connector, is meeting them on their turf and saying, we're here to support you. And we understand that you have a lot of things going on in life and we want to walk with you and see your child succeed. So we've been doing newsletters, home visits, and then we also have a lot of community partners as well. Rick's Custom Fencing and Decking provides a lot of financial support for our Bike to Go program. And that has been huge, seeing the needs being met through our community partners. We could not do it without them. None of the student supports or the parent supports could happen without partners such as Rick's Fencing. Our cookie house also just recently donated a lot of cookies to help kind of encourage students in a way. We worked with the paraeducators there to look for students who were working hard, meeting those goals and really seeing the little successes, and then rewarding and surprising the kids with a cookie pass. And that was something that was really small, but it took the effort of a community partner to be there. We also work with Hill Spring Church. They have a bicycle ministry called In Gear Cycling. That has been amazing. They provide a lot of bikes for our students who struggle to have transportation to school. I cannot express how impactful they have been to our school, both to the students and to the parents. But seeing the students, the older, the 5th graders and the 4th graders, they there was a light switch that clicked when they saw I can have someone that will help meet my needs, and now I can come to school easier. I don't have to walk a mile or so in the cold or in the heat. Like now I have a mode of transportation, and it's something I think we often take for granted, but working with those community partners has been great. I will invite Megan, our principal, up here to kind of talk about our collaboration as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Katie. I'm really honored to be here today, not only to accept the appreciation on behalf of all the principals from Dr. Pierce, thank you so much. I really chose the right day, but also because Sunset View Elementary actually not only has community in schools, but also participates in Team Read. And so I am immensely grateful for both of those partnerships, and it has been wonderful. This is my second year at Sunset View, and I think Katie described really well the work that she does at our school, but she's just an integral member of our team. And every morning our team meets together. My administrative team, as well as our counselor, our community and schools, student support coordinator, and we talk about really what our students need at Sunset View, and we communicate constantly to make sure that those needs are met. And so not only with attendance, but with the needs that she facilitates in our community, it makes our school a stronger place. So if you come to Sunset View, not only will you see Katie doing that great work and not only facilitating the partnership with our families, but the partnership with, me and with our staff. Katie sends out a newsletter every single week, not only to our families, but to our staff members. And she talks about the great work that she does, and it also helps our staff understand our student needs better, which really allows us to better serve in all areas. So that's a wonderful thing that she does, and we're just very thankful to have that partnership and to have that support, as well as the partnership with Team Read. And I can speak really for both of the organizations in our school that it makes Sunset View a better place. And coming into that as a new principal, the support that not only Katie, but that Amy provided me last year allowed me to do my work better so that I can support our families in every way to ensure that every student at Sunset View feels safe, known, and valued. And so I just wanted to echo that great work, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight.
Thank you very much. Questions?
Thanks for what you do.
I've got a question. So I think 5 slides back, you have some data charts.
I'm going.
Got it? That's
This
it?
one?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yes.
So just a couple questions about this. Are these numbers, are these local numbers, like our numbers, or are these national numbers?
So this is the data that we kept just on Kennewick.
Okay.
The supports that we provided at the 11 schools that we've had in Kennewick.
Okay.
The slide before that is what we've provided as our local agency to the 5 districts that we're in.
Gotcha.
This one right here.
Gotcha. And then, so when I see tier 1 support, is that the tier 1 that we all think about, or is that something different, or tell me kind of what that is to
They're
tier 1?
very similar. So when we say we have tiers of support, so we have a tier 1 support. So tier 1 support is the support that's available to all students in the schools that we serve. A tier 2 is a support that a group of student needs. So if you have we have some students who may be having some attendance difficulties, or just looking at some of those barriers, we will have, our SSEs will pull a group of students and set some goals with them as in a small group setting. And then tier 3 is the like a one-on-one case managed support. So maybe it's the home visit to the home, or it's a conversation with mom and dad, or whoever the child is living with. So it kind of just depends on what the student needs. Each of our case managed students has a student assessment that is completed, and then they have an individualized student support plan. So whatever the barrier is for that student is what we target. But as a tier 1, our schools have an overall goal. So for example, Sunset View is their overall school goal right now that Miss Katie is working on is attendance.
Okay. So my other question would be like the value tied to each one of these numbers. Like, so when I see, I don't know, family engagement at 26%, like what does that mean? 26% of what? Like what is the value attached to that number?
So 26% of the overall goals that we provided all of last year, 26% of them were a family engagement support.
Okay, so these are referring to the number of goals that you have set. So 26% of your goals had to do with family engagement.
So that would be the supports that were provided. So it could be providing putting on a family resource night. It could be providing
Family newsletters.
family newsletters. It could be postcards home to families just to celebrate successes. So anything that is in a family engagement event or support.
And then 17,426 basic need items provided.
Mhm.
Pencils, erasers.
Food, clothing, hygiene items, bite to go, food boxes at the holidays,
Okay.
school supplies.
And then like your success metrics. So, what does success look like? So I think you're going to tell me, you kind of answered that, but I was without answering your question for you, like what does success look like? What are the metrics? How do you measure that? How do we know that this program is being successful?
So each of our students has, like I said, an individualized goals. So for example, I'm going to say little Megan.
Susie Q.
Susie Q. Susie Q has a student or a specific goal of attendance. So we look at attendance at the first of the year. We progress monitor them at each grading period, and we look to see, are our supporting that student, are they making success? Are the numbers of days that they're missing per semester or per trimester decreasing? So we want them to decrease the number of times that they are absent.
So the goals are really
Very
individualized.
Very individualized.
To each kid.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you have a student with an academic goal and we're looking at reading goals, we will provide additional supports in reading, and then once they're tested, we look at that. So if they are making growth, they're being successful.
Okay. And then so like, how do you find the student cases to manage?
That's a great question, because it comes in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's you're walking down the hallway and the teacher's like, hey, I need to talk to you because I have this kiddo. Or you come and there's a sticky note because the day is busy, or it comes in an email. Oftentimes it comes in tier 2 meetings when we're talking about a group of students and they're saying, okay, we have these 5 students who are struggling with attendance. Miss Katie, can you work with them? And let's talk to mom and dad about consent, getting them on the caseload, and really targeting those supports that are needed.
And then, okay, so it's come in a variety of different ways, and then what's your step in notifying the parents and communicating with the parents?
So none of our students can be case managed unless we have a signed parent consent. And our consents are per district, and so it is a partnership with the district and ourselves that goes through, I think, your guys' legal department. To make sure that it is in alignment with the goals of the district and ourselves, and then families have to sign that agreement for us to be able to work with them.
And so every time you're meeting with a kid or helping a kid, the family is aware?
They may not be aware of every time if we're having a quick conversation in the hallway, but if there's any issues that come up, our staff are really great about circling back and talking to families about what's needed.
Okay. And so you guys are obviously filling a gap. Is this filling a gap that KSD is not providing? Is that how you look at it?
I think we are in alignment with KSD to support students' barriers. I think some of the barriers that we work on are not something that teachers have an opportunity to stop in their day and go and do. For example, we'll use Susie Q again. If a teacher is noticing that Susie Q is not maybe at school for the 3rd day in a row, and people are starting to wonder because that's maybe not like her and we haven't gotten a call, Miss Katie could go out, knock on the door, and is everything okay? We know that it's unusual. Like, what can we do to help you? And sometimes it's, hey, we just, we lost electricity, or, someone was sick and we need to find a doctor. So whatever those barriers are, our team steps in to try to help guide them with the community support.
Okay. And then so I guess one of the questions I have is like the oversight of this, and I don't know why. I hear stories about my kids being pulled out of class and why does my kid keep being pulled out of class? I hear these stories. I don't know why. Like, I don't know really what to tell the parents in that situation. Like, I've heard that a number of times. Like, why are they communicating? So I just want to make sure we're really good on that, really tight on that. And then like what the district's oversight is for that. Because I mean, like, ultimately, we are the school district, right? So we need to have ultimately, the buck stops to somewhere, right? So we need to make sure that what we're teaching, what we're learning, how we're helping is in line with our standards. right, and in line with the district standard. So that's one thing that I personally have a little bit of a concern about is that from, anecdotal stories that I've heard from social media, your social media posts that I don't know that line up with their district. So these are just some of my concerns I'm just expressing that I have. And then obviously the financial money concerns about what's going on. So, but I'll yield my time there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Diane?
When you were talking about the basic needs, and is that something that the Rick's Fencing and those people are helping you with? Is that where the funding for those supplies is coming from?
We have a very generous community, and so those come from a lot of different areas. We get requests from the community members on how can we help you? How can we help you help families and students? And so just depending on who is reaching out or who's donating. For example, we are working with a local agency who's doing just a hoodie drive because we know, big kids don't like coats sometimes. I have one of those big kids. I don't even know if she owns a coat. And so just like really looking at what's needed and then working with community partners to do that.
It's great to hear.
Okay.
So this question might be for Megan. As far as like budget goes in the schools to like help put on some of these events, is this funding from like the CIS provide the funding to do these events? Are these from the school funds? Who's like, there's a bunch of pictures of like donuts and stuff like that. Is that, I guess, do you guys have a budget that you work with within the school where you're able to provide this stuff, or is the school kind of helping budget that out, or who's paying for stuff?
So that's a great question. For example, so we have a lot of different, so when we have donations or individuals in the community who say, we want to support your agency. For example, the donuts with Miss Daniela, that came through a grant through HAPO. HAPO wanted to support CIS and the work that they're doing at Horse Heaven Hills. And originally last year they bought t-shirts, and this year they thought, well, do we want t-shirts or do we want to really work on some of those PBIS incentives? And so Miss Daniela, this was something that her and the principal decided that they wanted to do. And so Daniela was able to get the donuts through the grant from HAPO. So it just kind of depends. We have all of our SSEs have a programming budget where they use those funds. We just got a donation from Pac Gym from work that Katie has done. And so that's going to allow our Kennewick SSEs to have a little bit more funding to do some of those things on an individual basis.
Okay. And then as far as, CIS is in 11 schools, and it's my understanding that that funding, I think that funding comes from Title I or LAP funding or from the state or something to pay for the cost to have this the programs in schools.
Federal funding.
Yeah, federal funding. So is it just the contract why the other 11 schools don't utilize CIS, or did those schools determine they needed something else? And I don't know, maybe Megan, that is for you to determine how to.
Dr. Pierce.
Yeah, let me
Dr.
speak to
Pierce,
it.
yeah.
Kind of. So when I got to the district, we had, I believe, eight schools with the partnership, and it was really a board priority at that time to expand CIS to as many schools as we could. Now, not all schools receive federal funding because it's federal funding is designed to help mitigate the effects of poverty. Right. I mean, the title funding, and to supplement, not supplant. So our goal at the beginning when I arrived was to expand into 3 schools. So now we've got that 11, and so we've met that goal. And really the challenge with expanding partnerships is always about the agency's side, whether it's getting the volunteers and in the example of the Reading Foundation, or securing the people who do the work in the schools. And then on the school district side, it's the funding, right, to help support those programs. So, theoretically, we could expand even more, but the principal plays a big role in that, because they spoke beautifully tonight about the partnership, and I've seen this in action. I've been at Sunset View with these morning meetings and the coordination and so forth. So it really has to be, a willingness to partner, right, between the administration of the school and communities and schools. So it's, yeah, I mean, we've got really good examples of it occurring.
And
we
what
can
are
expand.
what are the other schools then that meet these, like, what are they doing then? Are they hiring like an additional para? Are they hiring like a teacher to help in other aspects? Like, I guess I'm trying to understand where the other 11 schools are doing versus communities and schools, like what that looks like.
I'm looking at Alyssa over here because she's got the most, knowledge about all the title funding.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the schools have brought on communities and schools when I, in my previous role, am working with Vic, and we see budget allocations for the following year, and it's like, and we see how much funds are going to be allotted. These funds are directly at the school. We can't say, as a district, we have these dollars, but the schools in these federal dollars will be allocated a certain amount. So when we know what those amounts are, we meet with the principals and say, hey, it looks like you're going to have $45,000 more dollars or $90,000 more dollars. What are your needs? And we listen. From there, we kind of can say like, okay, that sounds like maybe a para. That sounds like it could be social work. And so it's really geared, individualized to the school and that money that's available.
So in partnership with you, Vic, the principals, you guys discuss that and kind of whatever course of action is appropriate for the school.
Yeah, and then with communities and schools, for example, it takes a while to hire as well. So it takes 6-9 months planning. If a principal said, we've heard great things about communities and schools, we'd like to go that route. Interviews get set up, the principal is part of those interviews. If the principal wants a para for working with math groups, we allocate it during our staffing time, and then we hire over the summer.
Okay, that actually is a great segue into my next question. So I was curious, so with the student support coordinators hiring process, so the principal is involved in that process with CIS and
it's one of our agreed upons, like that the principal really is involved and is selecting a good fit for their location. I don't know if you want to.
It's really like we will screen for applicants, and we really want it to be a good fit. We want it to be successful. We don't want to have a partnership that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And so we will work, and we've changed the way that we do our principal interviews, because one of our must-haves is that we want our staff to be creative. So we ask our potential hires to do a principal presentation, and so that they can come in and say, this is what I have to add to your building, and this is how I plan on doing it. And so we really want them to see their candidate and say, okay, I've really, based on the culture at this building, we really think this person's going to be a good fit. And we know that there are some different needs at different schools. So we just had some staffing changes at Eastgate, for example. And one of the things that is really important to them is that they have a Spanish-speaking staff, because it makes sense. We want to be able to reach the families that are there. And so we really take into consideration, what is the principal's must-have? What are you looking for in this position? And then we, as an agency, with our standards, we are looking for, highly capable candidates as well, and really trying to find that fit. And so we don't want to put someone in a building that we don't think is going to be a good fit.
Yeah, no, that actually that's perfect. So when I was looking at the data and I saw the 1.2% said professional mental health. So I was curious if that was kind of a requirement of hiring. So I pulled up your job description and I was reading through it. I'm actually kind of concerned as why a required qualification is someone who's committed to social justice. What does that have to do with the program, and why is that a required qualification for the job?
We want to make sure that when we're working with all students and families, that we know that all students and families feel seen, valued, and heard. And so we want to make sure that we are hiring a staff that is accepting of all of the families that we serve and students that we serve in our area. And in regards to your question about the mental health, we do not provide mental health services, but we do partner with community agencies to guide families to those agencies. And we know that mental health is a need that is ongoing in our community. And so we're constantly working with our mental health partners in the area to see, do you have a waiting list Do you have online services or what are they called?
Wraparound services
Wrap-
too.
Like
Telehealth, thank you. And then wraparound services, because we know that we have families with big needs, and so we want to get them to the services. We don't claim to be mental health providers, but we know that that is a huge need in our community, and so we will give them, like, these are the agencies that are available in our area, here are their numbers. If you need, if you need assistance in there, I can sit with you while you call, but we really want to empower families to make those calls on their own, and in general, we want to empower families to help break through some of the barriers that they're facing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Again, that's concerning to me that we're eliminating candidates based on whether or not they're committed to social justice, which would lead me to believe that we may be skipping over maybe the best qualified candidates based on that particular required qualification. So that's a big concern for me.
What your concern? You want someone that's not committed to social justice?
I want to hire the best qualified candidate that is willing to work with all individuals. So my concern is, why does someone have to be committed to social justice? Why is that a required qualification? I do HR, I've done billions of interviews, like I've done job descriptions. Never in my life would anybody put that as a required qualification unless that's what they are specifically looking for. So
unless you know that that's a need. Like they just said, that's a need.
So our school district, then we're supporting social justice agendas in the schools, and that's like part of our mission and values is to commit to those programs.
Socially just, yeah, I am.
Okay.
I want people to be just. Yeah.
What does that mean?
I want people to help everybody, not based on just social justice and their particular.
I guess it's our definition of social justice.
Yes, I agree. So what is social justice promoting? What does promoting social justice mean?
We're getting off in the weeds here.
I don't think we are, Mike.
I really think we do.
So if you look right on their website, it says, we highly encourage and hope to seek applicants for color, multilingual, bilingual, multicolored individual, disabilities, member of LGBTQIA plus communities, and non-gender conforming. This is communities. This is who they're looking for. On their thing says they're committed to social justice, promoting diversity. So you're committed to promoting diversity, social justice, sexual orientation. It says right on your website, right under the qualifications I'm looking at right now. So my question is, what does that mean to you to promote social justice? Because that's concerning.
She already was asked and answered.
I don't feel like I got the answer.
Okay, well, so we're gonna sit here and wait till you get the answer you want? Is
So
that what we're looking for?
till I understand it, sure.
Well, we don't want to badger them.
Yeah.
You're really putting them in a bad spot, and you're eyeballing them down. You might not know it, but this stance.
What does
and
social
eyeball-
justice mean to you guys?
You don't badger them. Come on. If you have questions for them, you schedule time and you interview and you sit down with them.
This is a public forum, Ron. The
They
public
gave
deserves
you
to have
a
answers.
presentation. They're giving you a presentation and you're attacking them.
I-
And that's
Dr.
not
Pierce,
good.
can we add this discussion to agenda, please, down the road, like December 8th or
what?
later?
To do what?
To get
To
our
finish
questions
this
answered that you're
discussion.
stopping us from getting answers to. My
You
question
guys
is,
both came in here with agenda today. I mean, I'm watching
one's-
this.
my
This
question is,
Yeah, you would.
my
Okay.
question is, what does social justice mean to CIS?
Okay, yeah, you've asked that 4 times. We got
And
you.
what was the
We got
answer?
you.
What was the answer?
She answered.
What was the answer?
Micah?
She didn't answer it. What was the answer? I didn't hear
Okay,
it.
Dr.
Let's
Pierce?
just move. They don't care
So
to listen. They don't care to ask
I'd like to
questions.
make a suggestion.
Okay,
that
hey, let's
we-
quit the backbiting over there, Gabe.
We've
You got a
got,
question?
Yeah, I've asked questions. I
We got
haven't
that, and
got
they gave
clear
me
answers. You want to move on, let's move on. But however, it's clear that you guys had one question. You guys don't seem to want to ask questions. So we are. These are questions we've been asked by community members, so we're going to ask them. That's our right as a board member. When we don't get the answer, then what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to go meet with them behind closed doors, ask our questions, have a little this and that, and then what?
Then bring it back to the board with the
Okay.
answer.
Okay, perfect.
Dr. Pierce?
yeah. I'd like to make a suggestion because, there's leadership in agencies and we've got, people who are presenting here who are working and I don't think it's really fair to be asking some of these questions. It would be like maybe asking a teacher a question that's really more appropriate to be asked to a principal or to me. And so I'd like to suggest that a meeting with whichever board members, we can coordinate it later with like the leadership in in communities and schools, like with Lupe, and to have a conversation about some of these things and then report back to the board as a whole.
My question is not for you, it's for CIS, I still don't know the answer. So
Right,
maybe I
but what
can
I'm
think
saying
about
is
that
we're
and
not
send you an
talking
email.
to, there's a leadership structure within the agency of CIS, right? There's an executive director, and I don't want to make, I want to make sure I have everybody's titles correct. But the people who are presenting tonight are probably not the people that we should be asking some of these questions to. It would be the leadership of CIS who's not presenting tonight, but we can set up a meeting with them.
Sure.
Okay.
Ladies, thank you very much for your time. We
Thank you.
appreciate it greatly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Good
very
job.
much.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, Alyssa is going to give a report on the HICAP.
All right, well, good evening. I'm here to talk a little bit about our highly capable program here in Kennewick and just give some updates of some work that's been happening in highly capable. I wanted to remind the board, last year in our strategic plan objectives, we had some work done around creating a cycle of reviews for our programs and using some different evaluation tools. So one of our first programs that we looked at was highly capable last year. So I'm going to share some of the findings and how we're responding to that program review. That couples nicely with this year as well. We've got a strategic plan objective because there's been some legislative updates around universal screeners for highly capable. So tonight I want to spend a little bit of time just talking about the definition of highly capable, our current models, and some data about our current program, and then share some information from our program review last year, and then talk about universal screeners that are starting to happen this year. So we're going to start with some of the WACs and how they define highly capable. So in the WACs, the definition of students who are highly capable are students who perform or show potential for performing at significantly advanced academic levels when compared with others of their age, experiences, or environments. They have outstanding abilities that are seen within students' general intellectual aptitudes, specific academic abilities, and creative productivities within specific domains. Highly capable students also have some learning characteristics. They have a capacity to learn an unusual depth of understanding, to retain what's been learned, they're able to transfer learning to new situations. They've got a capacity and willingness to deal with increased levels of abstraction, complexity, especially when compared with their peers. They have a creative ability, making connections. They're able to learn quickly. They also have a capacity for intense concentration and focus. The state also has some WAC language around teachers. The highly capable students need teachers who are trained in how a highly capable student learns, how they're identified, what their academic, social, emotional characteristics are, and different programs and delivery models for highly capable students. The state also does program reviews and monitoring of districts' highly capable programs, usually once every 5 years. And our last program review was in 2019 with, from OSPI. And it lists a little bit of what OSPI looks at when they come in for those program reviews. One other one that is in the WAC is the different program services. Districts have to have a variety of appropriate program services for students who qualify, and we have to have a continuum of services K-12 for our highly capable students. So I want to talk a little bit about our current programs in elementary school. We have 3 different program models up here. I'm going to start over on the right-hand side with our Young Scholars after-school programs. These are located at our title schools. Students who qualify, they've qualified with a universal screener, a nonverbal universal screener in 2nd grade, and they get invited to participate in an after-school STEM program. And last year we had about 170 students participate in that. We have at 4 of our elementary schools, we have 2 teachers in those 4 schools. They each have 2 schools each, so half day. And they have a small group pull-out model for students who are advanced in reading and in math. And for those 4 schools, we have about 124 students receiving highly capable services. And then we've got our opportunities for the gifted, or COG, that's located at Vista Elementary. And this is a fully contained, highly capable classroom for 3rd through 5th graders in Kennewick. And last year we had 73 students in that program. So there's criteria for all of these models as well. I'm also going to just share some data about our students who are in these programs with you. So the next few slides just show percentages of our students who are in them. So you can see our male-female students in COG, in the pull-out programs, and then in Young Scholars is about 50-50. We've also wanted to look at our programs by ethnicity. So we've got our 3 programs there, and then our student populations listed for each of them. For our students who are multilingual learners, these would be current students getting services for learning the English language, not students who have exited services. So we currently have 11% of the students in Young Scholars are multilingual learners. And then we also have some data on special education students in our programs. And then we've also collected information on our students who receive free or reduced price lunches and are in receiving highly capable services. So this leads into one of our other RCWs for highly capable identification. There is an RCW about equitable identification of low-income students. And I mentioned for our Young Scholars program, we've been using a universal screener for a number of years now as a way to increase our participation in highly capable programs, especially at our schools that have a lot of low-income students. So that's kind of where we're at right now in our programs. I want to share a little bit about our program review of highly capable from last year. We partnered with a research company called Hanover Research, and Hanover Research provides districts with a dedicated research team, and they will do customized research plans, and they will deliverable actionable plans, insights, and analysis. So they help support us in benchmarking high-performing programs and schools that are like districts of like demographics and sizes. They help us with some data analytics and also help design a survey and helped to analyze the survey results. So the first thing we did when we were working with Hanover was we started to look at best practices in elementary age highly capable students. And so they prepared for us a report of best practices, and I wanted to put the 3 sections up there that they helped us with. They helped us learn more about equitable student identification. effective service models, and then they've also highlighted in Washington State, Vancouver Public Schools as a like district in size, demographics, that had best practices in highly capable programs. Some of the recommendations that they shared with us to consider was when we are looking at identifying highly capable students, we need multiple measures. We can't just have one, and we need to make sure we're using quantitative and qualitative data in our screening methods. They also recommended to us that we have an RTI type model to systemically support highly capable students at all levels of service. And those are things I'm going to talk about a little bit more in a few slides. They also recommended to us that if we're going to be making changes, we need to make sure we have a lot of collaboration and consensus and a lot of people involved in the process, so we can create a lot of buy-in and understanding as to why we have the programs we have, and if we're going to make a change, why. And finally, that we need to be looking at our programs regularly to make sure we have the best programs for our students. So when I was reviewing these, it really made me think of a few of those WACs that I mentioned earlier about program review, looking at universal screeners to make sure we're getting those low-income students identified as well. So that was the first part of our work with Hanover, was just looking at best practices and looking for some examples to learn from. The second part of the program review was creating a survey, and surveying not just our staff and our families, but also our current 4th, 5th, and 6th grade highly capable students. And so this survey was to gather some perceptual data about the programs. The only staff, families, and students who participated were those in highly capable programs. So we wanted to find out what levels of satisfaction were from those groups, and what areas of growth we had and how we could do better. This was done electronically in March. We had 266 participants in it, and we were able to break out the groups. They also helped us analyze. I'm going to share some recommendations that they gave us in a minute. Hanover helps with some methodology to the survey. So we have some, I'm not going to read through all of these, but there are some cautions. You didn't have to answer every single question. So if less than 20 answered, we knew that and they flagged it. So that would be something we were aware of in the responses. They did give all of the data to us raw as well, so we can look at it. But they did help kind of break down and see some themes and recommendations. So the three main recommendations Hanover worked with us were to investigate root causes of inequities in our highly capable program models. And some of that you can see in the data that I showed as far as participation in the 3 different types of models. They recommended that we improve our communication, timelines, the screening processes, and just create some better transparency with staff and families about what our highly capable programs are, how our students qualify, what are the services. And then the last recommendation was to be increasing opportunities for our staff to be collaborating and getting professional development. So we've already started down this road with those recommendations. So over the summer, we started putting some plans together to be working on them. So for recommendation at number 1, looking at some of those root causes of inequities, we are starting to work with our building principals to learn about different delivery models and also professional development for highly capable students. We want to also be planning this year, so next year all of our students can get highly capable services during the school day. And we will keep Young Scholars as an after-school program, but we don't want to deliver those as a service to students after school. For recommendation number 2, improving communication and screening processes, this goes really nicely with our legislative requirements that I'll talk about in a slide of universal screeners. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these recommendations in a couple slides with the screening process and just creating timelines. The third recommendation was increasing opportunities for staff to collaborate. So we've already been, we've scheduled monthly meetings. This one is just is well received. We're getting good attendance from our schools. We have principals and teachers participating. And this one's just a good reset since COVID. It kind of dwindled, and we're bringing it back and giving it some attention. We want to make sure we're providing more professional development for teachers so they know what our highly capable students need and that they're getting the supports they need in classes and in programs. So a little bit about the universal screening and equitable enrollment practices. You may remember in June when we had a retreat, Dr. Pierce shared some updates about some universal screeners that were going to be required. We knew at the beginning of the summer that we needed to start planning for universal screeners to occur in or before 2nd grade and then in or before 6th grade. So we've been working on that. I'm going to share what screener we've selected right now for 2nd grade. And we're doing all the second graders right now. And then also we need to have a referral process in place outside of those grade levels that aren't being universal screened. So we are working to catch those students and making sure they're not slipping through the cracks. The RCW for equitable enrollment, we are looking at our procedures right now to see if we are aligned with this, but they really, the spirit of the RCW is more that we're universally seeing students and using multiple measures. There's a multidisciplinary team reviewing data for our students. And that we're not just using one academic type measure for highly capable. We're looking at cognitive screeners, possibly a creative screener, parent surveys, family surveys. So we want to be a little more holistic in how we're screening for highly capable programs. So for 2nd grade, we have selected the COGAT as our cognitive screener. It might not be for the 5th grade, and I'm going to explain why in a minute. The COGAT measures the level and pattern of cognitive development of students compared to age and grade level. One thing that we like about the COGAT assessment is you can gather data on age and also grade levels. Those are 2 different measures we can look at for students to help make a better decision. The COGAT measures general reasoning starting at birth, and that continues to develop. There's 3 areas, verbal. In 2nd grade, it's actually nonverbal, but it's said verbal, that's the section. Quantitative, which is number analogies, and then there's a nonverbal that has figures and patterns that we're looking for. The reason I mentioned we might not use COGAT before 6th grade is we want to make sure our universal screener stays a nonverbal screener, so we are catching all of our multilingual learners. And there are some other assessments we can use that are nonverbal. So this fits nicely with the recommendation from our program review of improving our screening processes. Having a universal screener gives us a really strong data point for that cognitive ability of our students that we need to make sure is reflected in our process for highly capable programs. So we are looking at revising that screening process right now. So we're using a data review process with a multidisciplinary team, and then we will be notifying schools and families of students who've qualified. We won't start delivering services until we notify parents and get permission for that, but we want to work on this process and then by springtime have our website updated. Right now it's not. But we want to make sure by the end of the year, we've got much cleaner processes, and it's just easier to understand how kids qualify. I'd be happy to take any questions.
I think I asked the same question last year, but I don't have the right book to find the answer that you gave me, I know. The 25% female or 26%, 74% male in the COG classes. I know you gave me this answer last year. What is your theory about why that is?
I don't have a theory. When we shared that with the highly capable teachers, one of our teachers was a high cap student, and so several years ago it was the flip. They were very surprised by that. Yeah, so I don't have a theory. And I don't know.
When Hanover talked with you, was that something that they felt would show up better in the newer screeners?
They make suggestions of using cognitive, academic, creativity, and behavior. So I'm curious as we roll out this different process, how those, I want to compare.
Yeah, because I remembered it was the other way, and that's.
Yeah, I know.
Who knows?
I know.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
So we're like this, like a high level backup plan view, right? Do you feel like this is expanding the program or restricting it? I mean, what do you, how do you feel?
I feel that the legislative requirements are in place because we've been under identifying our students. So that could be expanding because we want to make sure we're making sure we identify students.
Okay, yeah. The one thing I'm obviously really concerned about is I never want to take the top off of anything. I want to push the top higher, higher, right?
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I listened to it and I read this before, right? And I'm just like, I still don't have a very good like feeling of, is this like increasing it or low? I mean, I see goals. What's that going to do? What's projection? What do we think? And so it sounds like what you think you actually might be adding more kids into the program because we're identifying more.
Yes.
And that's expanding. And
it might not be more at COG. It might be more in our building level program models.
Dr. Pierce.
I would say, philosophically, what we want to do is serve every student who's appropriately identified as benefiting from highly capable services. So if that looks like increasing the spots that are available through COG, that would be an avenue, or increasing the, pull out or looking at that kind of in place model. But one of the issues right now with our programming is that, and you saw it in the numbers of low income, like we have 0% low income students in COG and in pull out. They're all in Young Scholars. That's because the only program available, if you qualify in certain schools, is Young Scholars. So that's an issue of not providing the right access to a program that students qualify for, or it's a different school, it's after school instead of during the school day. So all of these things are actually kind of converging nicely. I mean, our internal program review, the legislation, it's about making sure we're serving all the kids who should be served.
Good, okay.
Yes.
So this was several years ago, so tell me if this is still correct, that many of our students in the pull-out program were there because their parents did not want them taken out of their home school and to put in COG. Is that still how that kind of feeds?
I'm not sure I don't think of it quite that way.
Or not all of them.
I think several years ago, and I was in other roles, but there was a little bit more funding for highly capable, and also there was a push to make sure we're providing services besides COG. So we were growing programs in each neighborhood school so we could serve in the schools where COG was more of a magnet, or sometimes you'll hear tier 3 type highly capable program.
Because know at several of the schools I was at, the parents said, I really love my school. My other kids go here. That's just,
Yeah.
we want to stay here. And so then
Yep.
that was a great support
Yep.
for those students to be
Yeah.
able to stay in their home school.
Yep.
Anything else?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
In the slide under recommendation, it talks about identifying ways for other screening methods. Currently now, is it just one assessment that identifies our
No.
COG students, like the SBA
Yeah.
or something?
Currently, we're using STAR or MAP, and if those scores are high enough, we've been giving a cognitive test. So we've got at least, and we'll have 2 years of information. We want to make sure that students are steadily scoring very high, like 95th percentile. What the universal screener does is it's kind of making us flip to look at how kids think, and making that the first measure before we start looking at the academics in it as well.
The other shift is, instead of having a system where it's like, if you meet the threshold on this assessment, then you can access this assessment, and we'll see if you meet the threshold. The shift in the legislation is really to go, okay, here's essentially a portfolio of evidence. You took this assessment, you did this, this, and this, and it's looked at holistically. So it's not like you missed this one by 1 point, now you're out, right? It's looking at the holistic view of what a student
That makes sense.
is able to do, and making a determination based on it that way.
And is all this based on, so like, what about our like ELL learners and stuff? Like, are they only allowed to take these in English, which would keep them potentially from meeting the criteria?
Thank you for asking. The WAC and RCW says if assessments are available in home or native languages, they should be given in those languages. One of our other criteria that we're using is from the WIDA assessment. WIDA is able to measure students who learn language quickly. That is an indicator of highly capable thinking. So that is one of the criteria we'll be using for all of our multilingual learners.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I think that's it.
All right.
So thank you so much. Okay, next up, we have no unfinished business. We're on to new business. Melissa's going to stay and talk to us about policy
Staying here.
2417, instruction, elective credit for paid work experience.
Yeah, so in June, Dr. Pierce shared that there was a House Bill 1658 authorizing high school students to earn credit for paid work experience. And we've been waiting for guidance from OSPI so we can get planning and offer this opportunity to our students. And the day is here. Do you want to make this just a little bit bigger? So we part of creating this opportunity for students is adopting policy for making sure students have the opportunity to learn and master the state financial education learning standards. So this is our first step in getting our procedures in place so we can be offering elective credit for paid work experience. This is a brand new policy. We took some of it from the WASDA model language and some directly from the WAC, but we wanted to outline some of those conditions of when students could be earning credit. They have to get permission, it has to be supervised, they have to submit a reflection and tell how they learned about the financial literacy standards. So once this policy is approved, we will work on getting our procedure and forms updated, so we'll be ready to go.
Nice.
Is this a high school, so 9th grade through 12th grade then?
16 and above.
16 and above, okay.
Mhm. And I think it's up to 2 credits, elective credits, yeah.
The
Letter
downside-
G, a maximum of 2.
So the downside about a lot of this is most kids can't, unless you're 18, you can't get a job. So that's I know that people are working on trying to change that this year specific to this.
Yeah, our CTE advisories are working a lot with their partners because of that exact challenge.
We're running that everywhere.
Yeah.
So then, in theory, you got a family-owned business, the kids work all summer for their parents, they can write a summary or whatever meets the criteria. Mom and dad sign off, submit it, they get a credit based on the hours worked for that summer.
Well, that's,
Or, I mean, is
summer's
there a lot
gonna be
more?
a little bit tricky because it has to be pre-approved and then so many hours. And I haven't seen where summer's falling
yeah,
for
I'm just
that one. That's a really good
curious.
question.
Yeah. The other thing is, they're going to be enrolled in a course that's called work or something, right? They're still going to be enrolled, and we'll collect funding for them, which is a good thing for us. And then they complete the requirement, the narrative, all of the things that are included in the policy. And then they're awarded credit. So it's like, that also lends itself to the fact that it's like happening during as a part of their school year experience.
Because to get the credit, you'd have to most likely work in the summer at some point.
If you look at E, it kind of speaks to that.
Part of their school day.
No, it says experiences that occur outside the calendar or through whatever. So they left, from what I
Yeah.
heard last year when they were talking about this, that was left kind of vague because this is almost like a pilot type of thing. And so what they were talking about was if somebody really did all those things that you're talking about and did it really well then it would be granted. If somebody took advantage of it and just, scribbled it, then they will have to make a little more prescribed language perhaps. So.
It's
So
a
the
good
council-
question. We need to look at it.
I thought the counselor was involved in
They
this.
are,
Yeah.
So that has to be approved by,
that's
Right.
one of the people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will have to submit like an application or a proposal. We're going to create a form and that'll be at the schools. So someone will have to sign off on it.
One more question.
So is this going to be additional work for the counselor because we've changed the counselor's scope to be more student direct? So what if a student, through no fault of their own, perhaps their hours get cut? Or it could be through their fault, whichever. Then, who's there to make things happen better or if they're just not going?
Yeah.
Is that the
So
counselor's job?
I heard two questions.
Well, yeah.
And so one is we've not determined yet where it's going
That's
to
right.
be. It could be counselor or it could be principal. We don't know yet. That hours piece, that would be tricky.
Because a student could get halfway through and
Yeah.
we don't need you anymore, thank you very much.
Right.
And then what happens?
Right.
Yes, they could go look for another job, but that still could put them at.
I'm going to make note of that. Thank you.
That could put them at danger. And I know that was a discussion last year too, when this was in the legislature, when they talked about the hours and things like that. It's, what if a kid got to something and they lost out? Then what happens?
my understanding was it was also the partnership with the employees.
Correct.
So the employee would also be in agreement that this person is working towards a credit. So therefore, they would be not inclined to cut that person during the school year unless they're just not
Something happens.
performing. And if it's just like in a classroom, if you're not performing, you're not going to get the credit.
Yeah.
Or if the business has business issues, and that can happen too, right? With
Well,
the economy.
that's when the employee would work with
Right,
someone else and say, hey, can you employ this kid for the rest of the year to get him?
right.
So that's when the partnership kicks in.
I was waiting for that senior to be like, I'm gonna work 720 hours this year after lunch so I can get my 2 credits and
Yeah.
move on. Move on.
Well, and I think some of our guidance in the procedures, we need to make sure the right people and the right students are taking advantage of this, who need it to get to graduation, but it's not necessarily in place of a class they should be in. So we do have a lot we need to work out. This is just kind of the first step.
Any other questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
You
I
hear this, Diane?
I was going to say, I move to approve policy 2417, elective credit for paid work experience for first and second reading.
A second.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll call for the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Galbraith,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Ms. Sunbeck.
Yes.
Mr. Mabry,
Yes.
Mr. Connors.
Yes.
Thank you.
Melissa, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Next up is policy 3130, students release of resident students. Matt Scott. That's the right one.
I think that's good, Matt. You see it that way really well.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to get that other piece off there that showed everybody who made edits to it. So, yeah, this is the first of 3 policies that are in cards tonight that we're bringing to you regarding enrollment and transfer requests. So policy 3130, which is a policy that we currently have, is in regards to release of our resident students. What we found when looking at these policies is that some of the policies, there seemed to be inconsistency about whether they were talking about in-district students, out-of-district students, and there just seemed to be some lack of detail with how we currently are exercising some practices. So we felt it really important to come and really address all 3 of these policies. So 3130 is about concerning the release of resident students. So this is a student who lives in our boundary who wishes to go to a different school district, Pasco, Richland, for example. So what we really wanted to do is specify in the first paragraph, again, that who we're talking about, making very clear these are students who reside within the Kennewick School District. A through E, we're really there to provide us with, the reasons or the rationale a person might be requesting that transfer. So we just cleaned up some of that language, and then we added in at one point in C, they were just talking about medical hardships. The laws expanded beyond just a medical hardship, so we reflected that as well. And then we also didn't have any language currently in there about the student of a full-time school employee. So if we have somebody who is employed at the Pasco School District, for example, but lives in the Kennewick School District, they have the right through Washington Administrative Code to have their child attend the school where they teach, or a school within that system. So we really wanted that to be clear. Some of the crossouts below that are either antiquated, I mean, they're not part of current law. And then we wanted to be also clear about how a parent would request this. When we're releasing a student, all we're really doing is waiting for the district that they're asking you to accept them, and then we would release them. We do have a right to say no. We, to my knowledge, never really do. I mean, it's, again, they have a reason why they want to go to a different school district, and we comply with that. And this is really about apportionment because we're releasing that FTE to the other school district. Also wanted within this policy to let people know how the decisions, how they'll be notified of the decision and what their rights are to appeal that decision. Again, we would not be typically denying that, but there are ways that they could go about doing that. And then we just updated the legal references to include kind of our current formatting as well. So those are the changes to 3130, addressing our students who may want to be released to go to other school districts.
Questions?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept policy 3130 as presented, first and second reading.
I'll second.
Any further questions or comments? If not, I'll call for the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Galbraith,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine.
Yes.
Ms. Sunbeck.
Yes.
Mr. Mabry,
Yes.
and Mr. Connors.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, policy 3131, out of district, non-resident or choice student transfers.
Yeah, so Policy 3131 addresses now us receiving students who are coming to us from another district. So we get into a little bit more detail here because we're now considering accepting those students. So really, just to walk you through really quickly some of the changes. Again, we wanted to really be clear in the titling of the policy, what we were talking about. So we just, in talking to the principals, they said there's an in-district transfer and there's an out-of-district transfer. And it was much more clear to say these are out-of-district or non-resident. And then OSPI refers to it, and the portal that they use to request this through OSPI is a choice transfer. So we wanted that to be in the parenthetical there as well. We wanted to make sure that that within the language here that we were very clear that our in-district transfer requests are going to receive priority over out-of-district transfer requests, because again, these are in-district are people who are living within our boundary or who are living within the community, who are paying their taxes in our community, and we want to make sure that we're allowing them before. So we wanted that to be clear. That wasn't clear within the policy language prior. We also wanted to be clear about how they would go about applying for an out-of-district transfer. And then we moved some of the numbered items into procedure because they seem to be a little bit more procedural in terms of why we would be the rationale for accepting. So we moved those into procedure out of policy. We also want to be clear that we provide on our website information about transfer options, both in district, out of district, online, and that's where they can find that information. Again, we talk about the online choice transfer request portal that is used through OSPI. OSPI really would like those transfers to go through that process because, again, it is about apportionment and wanting to make sure that districts are claiming what they should be claiming for funding. We also didn't have any language about falsifying information, and unfortunately we do have folks who sometimes will falsify information, and we wanted to make sure that they knew that if they're achieving transfer based on falsifying information, that there are some consequences to that. We also wanted there to be some avenues for students who have been accepted from an out of boundary school district, that if they're exhibiting excessive misconduct or they're struggling with their attendance, that there would be a way to remove them back to their home boundary school. So we put language in there around that, and then also language around notification for how they would be notified if they're accepted, and how they'll be provided opportunities to appeal that decision. So those are the changes that we made to policy 3131.
I have a question, sorry. We have excessive misconduct, chronic absenteeism as reasons that we can essentially deny an out-of-district transfer. What can we potentially add in something like 2.0 GPA as a requirement? Mm-hmm. I mean, like, is that something we could do if the board has appetite for that?
Yeah,
I like that.
We could do something like that. We typically, in the past, there has been references made within WAC to academic achievement. Those references are no longer in the WAC, and we're no longer in the model policy. So that's why we didn't make that. Again, the out of district transfers, and so this is why, I mean, I think it's important that the WACs and the RCWs are paid attention for these, because within the WASDA model policies, as we've talked about before, there are policies that are considered to be essential, and then there's policies that are considered to be discretionary. The out of district transfer request policy is an essential policy, which I think means that it's tied more to kind of those rules and regulations that are found within WACs, whereas our in-district tends to be more discretionary, because again, we can decide within our student population, our family population, what we can do in terms of those transfers. So that would be my only caution, is that if it wasn't included in the WACs, there may be a rationale for why it isn't, and so that we left in those. In the procedures, we also do define what we mean by excessive misconduct, and we do define what we mean by excessive absenteeism. And then the last part in there that is part of the procedure is that if a student really requires some special program, they're saying, hey, we really want to go to Kennewick because my child is a struggling reader, and you have a better program there. We get to make the determination whether the program we have to offer is going to suit the student's condition. So those are a couple of the things that would be found in procedure that would guide the decision-making process beyond that. But I didn't find within the WACs any reference to saying a minimum GPA or a number of Fs or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, again, to me, I think it makes sense, or some sort of, if you're under a certain GPA, if there's not a real exception to why you're coming to the school district, like a specific program, or, you're going to this specific school because it has this program that you need help with, and that's what's keeping you, holding you back, and we can provide that, great, but I mean, if someone wants to transfer to Kennewick and they got a 0.8 GPA, I mean, I don't know.
So,
Dr. Pierce, please.
Okay.
Just a couple things to consider as part of this conversation. So if our, neighboring school districts don't have that, there's always a coming and going, and there's a financial aspect to this too. So we wouldn't want to have too many, I get it, I mean, the attendance, the behavior, that kind of thing, but if we're releasing students to attend other districts and they don't have that same kind of thing, and then we're not allowing kids to come in, it could not be helpful to our enrollment overall. If we made too many barriers to having kids come in. And the other thing is, I know that there's an appeal process that goes through the OSPI. And so it might just, if we had like too many, requirements that were sort of outside the WAC, like Matt spoke to, we might end up having to have a bunch of appeals going through OSPI, which would be not a great thing. That'd be the only things I would think about.
And I'd add as well that part of, again, the rationale that a family would use to request the transfer might be for hardship or educational reasons. So I can speak for my own self. I had a child who attended a school district, not Kennewick School District, who was really struggling academically. And I chose to bring my child here because I felt that we had some better programs for that child. But if I hadn't been the principal in my school and had the ability to do that, my child may have looked and said, oh, that boy's reading too low for us. And that would have been, so again, I think that parents are able to outline why their child may need to come here for those educational reasons, and then it's up to us to decide if that is a good rationale. And I think that it looks different for a high school student who's maybe not attained very many credits and is coming because they think, well, maybe I can jump to a better situation, which is different than maybe for a fourth grader who's struggling. So I think that there still is, within our policies and procedures, opportunity for us to weigh the individual circumstances, and we're not limited by the fact that there isn't that GPA or grade requirement. We can look at them on an individual basis. So
how many have we denied in the past? Have we ever denied any?
Yeah, we've denied out of boundary requests, oftentimes due to space because we have others, but we have denied for reasons that were outlined within our previous policy.
And I specifically know when you talk about it, at the end of 1 year not renewing, I specifically know of many, I shouldn't say many, 8 or 10 students who were not allowed to come back the following year due to absences and things like that.
Yeah.
So
they do have to renew it every year on these out of district. They have to renew it every year. So yeah, so those are just a couple of thoughts in regards to that. Your point's well taken, that we don't necessarily need to be taking more students who have significant academic needs when we're already struggling to provide services to our students who are. But again, I think that there's some provisions here, particularly within the procedures, that help us with that.
Yeah, if we're saying that there are provisions that if we bring a student in and they go through the year and maybe they fail 4 classes and get a half a credit, then we have the ability to say, like, we're just not going to renew it. Sorry.
Right.
So, okay.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve policy 3131 out of district, non-resident or choice student transfers as written for first and second reading.
I'll second.
Any other questions, comments? If not, I will call for the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Galbraith?
Yep.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Ms. Sunvik?
Yes.
Mr. Mabry?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, moving on, policy 3132, students in district transfers.
Okay, so policy 3132 now is dealing with our in-district folks. So again, a lot of what, because this is a discretionary policy, I did utilize WASDA policy to help guide it. But I also went to our principals, because a lot of what I thought was lacking within the policy were things that we were already doing. They just weren't written down within policy. So I felt it was really appropriate for us to make sure that that was codified in some way. So again, we wanted to make sure that what we were talking about was really clear. So prior to this, we called it such things as voluntary transfer, and resident students in district. We just wanted to be really clear. It's in district transfer language, but it also does address attendance boundaries a bit in this policy, which is very important as we are coming up on boundary changes at the elementary level. So we need to have language that's very clear for our residents as well. So when we looked at, again, the first policy just recognizes and talks a little bit about how students are assigned. That language wasn't in the policy, and we thought it was really important that we talked about the fact that attendance areas are set according to board adopted geographic boundaries, and that students' legal residence really determines where their attendance area school is. But they do have an opportunity to request in-district transfer to a different attendance area school. We talk in the second paragraph really about the fact that students who are enrolled in special programs have a right to transfer, but it does depend upon whether or not the school that they're wanting to transfer into has the programs they need to be able to be successful. And if they don't, then that would be a reason to deny the transfer. We talk a little bit about what happens during the course of a school year if somebody moves. We value, as I talked to our principals, we value the fact that we don't want students to have to move mid-year. So students will always be allowed to remain in school, in their school they're attending for the rest of that school year, and will not have to change to a school till the next school year, unless a parent wants them to do that. Obviously, if a parent wants to move them to a school, they can do that. We also talk a little bit in paragraph 4 about that once we have an in-district transfer, again, these are students who are boundary students to Kennewick, unless there's a boundary change or anything like that, that they're going to be allowed to stay in that school until they go to the next level. And even at high school, we have a lot of concern on our high school or principals about the eligibility requirements about WIA eligibility. And so a varsity athlete, if they transfer, will need to sit out a year and won't be able to participate in varsity athletics. So it was really important to those principals that, hey, once we have a student, let's not make them move just because of their boundary or the residence changing, because that can really impact. There are some provisions about that, but they really feel it's important that students stay in their home boundary high school particularly. We talk in the policy adding in language that we will establish space limitations. One of the challenges we ran into this year, particularly at Chinook, is that Chinook is very full from the very beginning, and we have people who are requesting transfer. And so we really want to be able to notify our families when a school is full, when a school may not be able to accept transfer requests because of space, be very transparent with that. So again, we talk about that. But we do want them to be able to stay once they are transferred in through that highest grade level. We have established some criteria through our procedure. So we took some of the criteria out of the policy because it is more procedural. And again, we included our falsifying information paragraph because, again, we want to make sure that people are approaching this fairly. We also provide opportunity, or we also wanted to clarify that, due to boundary changes or due to residence changes, just because your oldest child went to Kennewick, and that doesn't mean that all of your children get to go to Kennewick, and if you're no longer living in that boundary area. And so we wanted that to be clear as well. They can still request transfer, and we could still accept them on transfer, but we have some families out there that are under the impression that they're kind of grandfathered in based on their older children attending, and that, again, is just not the way we've approached things. We talk about extracurricular eligibility, and we lay that out in more detail in the procedure, and then we talk about the appeal process. One of the things that wasn't really clear was we talked about appeals generally. So we got a lot of appeals based on that space denial, and there's really no way to appeal space. You either have space or you don't have space. And so we want to make it really clear that there isn't an appeal process for space. There is an appeal process for some of these other more subjective items that they may want to plead their case on, and so we've outlined that as well. The rest of the crossouts, we had a big section on high school that really we moved into procedure, and it was really about WIA eligibility. So that's why there's a lot of crossouts on that, at the end part of that. So those are our changes that we've reflected here.
Any questions or comments?
Just one comment. You mentioned we would provide the community with like notice of schools that just we aren't accepting transfer for. Is that just something we'll put on the webpage, like 23, 24 school year, not accepting transfers to whatever school?
Yeah,
maybe.
Okay. And as soon as we know that, based on kind of our staffing, on where things are at, we'll be, and so it'll get to the point. I mean, Robin's going to love it because she'll be updating our website as frequently as she needs to, but it'll be stuff even as down to the detail of like maybe at Sagecrest Elementary, we don't have any room at first grade.
Yeah.
Okay. So, perfect. But we might have room at other grade levels. So we just want it to be really clear to our families so that they're not surprised by it, that they don't promise something that we can't do.
Thank you. I appreciate that transparency.
Diane?
So that brings me to the question. So this year, there's room in third grade for this child to transfer. In fourth grade, there's not room. I can't remember what happens then.
As they move up?
Correct.
So typically once they're in, there's a space for them.
Okay.
I mean, that's typically, and so we've tried to weigh that through the procedures. So for example, I mean, even students who move during the year, when Vic's doing projections, when we're doing projections, we don't take into consideration those kids who maybe have moved. We just kind of move up to the next grade level. So we're taking some of those things into consideration. We know that we're not always going to have perfect class sizes under a certain number, but we think we can accommodate those students, and once they're there, they're part of the school culture. So,
Perfect. Anything else? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve policy number 3132, in-district transfer attendance boundaries for first and second reading.
I second that.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I will call for the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Galbraith,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Ms. Sundvik.
Yes.
Mr. Mabry,
Yes.
Mr. Connors.
Yes.
Thank you.
Matt, thank you. Okay, next up is policy 1225, Board of Directors, School Director Legislative Program. Dr. Pierce will be presenting.
Okay, so there's two related policies. I'll start with 1225, which is a new policy modeled from WASDA model policy. And I'm having a little trouble here. Well, this one, there we go, good. This one is all new language, so there's no strike through or underline. Some of the language that, if you went to the WASDA model policy for this, you will see it added to the next policy that I'm going to present. So essentially, this just outlines that I feel like, much of what the board already does in terms of having a legislative priorities document or a legislative program, that the board's going to stay informed of pending legislation, and again, some of the specific things that the legislative rep does, you'll see in that other amended policy. So that's kind of the gist of this one.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we accept new policy 1225. as presented for first and second reading.
Second that.
Any questions or comments? If not, I will call for the roll call vote, please.
Okay, Mr. Galbraith,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Ms. Sunvik,
Yes.
Mr. Mabry,
Yes.
Mr. Connors.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, policy 1230, Board of Directors Legislative Representative, Dr. Pierce.
Okay, so this is existing policy with some amendments proposed. This is current practice, so it's not a change. This language is actually included in current policy around board organization, but having it here isn't a bad idea either, and it's just clear about when the legislative rep is elected. All of this kind of specific language around what the legislative rep will do was in the WASDA model policy of the previous version, but I thought it was better here since we did have policy on legislative representative. Again, I think a lot of it is current practice. It does make clear some language here about like when voting during WASDA General Assembly and how that works. So our current policy on legislative representative, you can see by the black, right, it was really, really short. Didn't have a lot of specifics. So this amended policy now includes specifics that were in the legislative program model policy.
Questions? Yes, sir.
There, in part A, 1, it says the rep will only make votes that are supported by a majority of the board members. So during the time of voting, or when you go to the General Assembly, there's a discussion. And so if there's discussion, you hear something, let's say if you were the representative, somebody, and you hear something, you say, oh, I didn't know that before. So the board is trusting that rep to make that change if he or she feels it would be to the advantage of the board that they're representing. So that statement seemed to take that away. You know what I'm saying?
Diane, please.
So one of the things we talked about last meeting or 2 meetings ago was moving back the board discussion time and having more board discussion of all of the proposals. And that's something that hasn't happened to any great extent, which would give more information to what you're discussing. I'm not saying that should be there or not. I'm just saying there would be more information and the board in total would have more time to give information about that. So that may ameliorate some of that issue.
I'm fine with it. If you want to leave
I
it.
see Ron's point. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a catch on both sides, right? On
Yeah.
Ron's side is like, what if the rep gets there and some new information. The other side is like, you also want the rep to represent what the board's discussed about and talked about ahead of time. So I can kind of see both sides of that, you know?
I do too, but you do elect that person with the thought that, okay, this is the person we trust that's going to represent. What if you're down the hill, what if that person goes on the hill and says something opposite of what the board, you trust that won't happen. So at General Assembly, you're also trusting that that person is going to listen to whatever has been said and make the best decision for the board. So I don't know, I guess if they're making the best decision, that is supported by a majority of the board. I talked myself out of it.
Diane?
Also remember that there are a lot of changes made to things, so we may see something in its form and the board may make a choice on, where they want to go on that. And I don't know, there was one of them this year that there were 20 different, poor Ron, you did great up there, but it kept changing and changing and changing, and pretty soon nobody understood it and they had to go back. And so what may be presented for voting may not bear much resemblance to what the board itself had discussed previously. So there's some ambiguity, I guess, in that. I'm not saying yes or no to that, I'm just saying there are some factors.
I wonder kind of in that case, it would be, you know, if the rep is not sure, if it's changed so much and the rep now isn't sure what the whole board would think, then the rep would just abstain.
And I think that part there is looking at that could be, the board could say that to the legislative rep. If there's such a change that it doesn't anymore reflect what we discussed, please abstain.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'm sorry, you guys, I'm not, I just noticed a punctuation error that I fixed.
Okay. I'll make a motion with the change that you just made, Tracy.
It's Michael and James.
I'd like to make a motion that the board adopt the changes to policy 1230 as presented for first and second reading.
I'll second.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I will call for the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Galbraith,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Ms. Sunvik,
Yes.
Mr. Mabry,
Yes.
and Mr. Connors.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is our next meeting agenda. A study session on financial literacy, board legislative priorities, and the student goals report. All students are ready for their future. Anything else we'd like to add to the next meeting?
I'd like to add something in the December meeting, discussion about the Healthy Youth Survey.
For December?
This is for the next.
Yes, and I have nothing to add to the next meeting.
Dr. Pierce is writing that down.
And then I have one more that I've sent some emails about. In January, just to kind of spread these out, in January, I'd like to just briefly revisit the race of the curriculum as it applies to the second step. So I guess both of those together. And I know you sent me, Dr. Pierce, a note about that, but I still think a discussion would be great.
About which one?
About, so, yeah, the
That
second step
okay.
thing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's already on there, I believe.
I reached out a couple times. Didn't hear back from you guys about getting on the.
I had put an item in weekly update.
Well, you did mention it to me, but I didn't get a confirmation it was actually in the meeting.
Oh.
So that's, I was wanting to
Yeah,
get.
I guess.
We haven't built them out that far yet,
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah, and the only thing I guess on that, I guess what I was trying to communicate is that may come sooner than January because it's in that pilot phase right now. And if through the pilot, it gets recommended through IMC and all of that for use, then it would come to the board for approval.
Okay.
So that's what I was trying to communicate through that is that.
I didn't understand that.
Okay. So because that's the November timeline, so.
Okay, yeah.
And I think by then, we would know whether it was being recommended, and then it would come to the board for discussion and potential approval or not approval, or I would be able to communicate by then that it's not coming forward. And so then it would be a moot point to have it on January. So I don't know, does that make sense what I'm saying now?
Not
No.
the first part, not the moot point, second part. no.
Well, if it doesn't, so if it doesn't get recommended by the IMC and like through this pilot and IMC, if they don't bring it forward to
Oh, like, if
recommend
they're not
for use,
recommending,
then
okay,
it
yeah.
won't get used. So
Gotcha.
then it wouldn't
That-
have to
I
go
got
on
it.
the agenda, right? Okay. But I mean, I've got that just sort of as a note, but I think it'll be already taken care of by then.
Okay.
And on the next meeting, I will not be here for the next meeting. I know, I will be out of town. I will not be anywhere near anything electric, so I'll be very happy I will not be able to attend. Okay, so other business as authorized by law, we're going to talk about our legislative.
Items, yeah,
Items.
so I had, this is another a set of information that I communicated with the board. So there's kind of a couple of issues. One is the timing. Typically, historically, At the next meeting, you've discussed legislative priorities document. I've taken that feedback and then I bring it back to you at the December meeting for approval. Given that we're going to have new board members, it just seems sort of weird to be bringing a legislative agenda that they've never, didn't have a part of. So I'm just grappling a little bit with how you want to deal with that. We also want to have the legislative priorities done before legislative session begins and before we meet, board and I meet with legislators. So I was suggesting that, it really hasn't changed that much. And I think that it's always passed with, what, I can't, late, what's the word I'm looking for? Unanimously, yes, thank you. And it's focusing on special education funding and a lot of things that we continue to talk about every year. So what I'm thinking is at the next meeting, the board could review the current document, and I've sent it to you already, so you can review it. We could make any like minor adjustments or whatever. You could approve it at the next meeting, which gives us time to meet with legislators before session starts. And then, and then we wouldn't have this situation where we've got new board members and they're being asked at their first meeting to approve a legislative priorities document that they haven't had any, part of. And if we don't do it then, if we wait and go, okay, let's wait till there's new board members and so they can be a part of developing this, it won't get done in time for us to have it before legislation starts and before we meet with legislators, which is typically later in November or December.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem going through it at the next meeting and approving it, but when we meet with legislators, my suggestion would be whoever the new board representative is, the legislative rep and board president, those are the ones that go and meet.
Yeah, I agree.
Correct.
Yeah.
They do.
Okay, so let's just think about timing here. So we okay, so if the board at the next meeting discusses and approves the priorities document, then board elections happen. I mean, the elections happen, they'll get certified, later in, I can't remember the day, but I think it's the 23rd or something. So we could then, we'll know we won't know the makeup of the, like who is the president and who is the legislative rep until December 13th. So then the legislative meetings will need to occur between like sometime in December, sometime post December 13th.
And that will be a
That's,
tight squeeze.
you're pushing the.
Because people will be.
Yeah.
Can we do like a quick remote meeting?
Well, we've done Zooms.
Yeah,
before.
what I could do maybe, and that's the other thing, there's 6 people we're gonna wanna meet with. Some representatives from the board and I are gonna wanna meet with, because we've got 3 in the 8th and 3 in the 16th. So I could like set those dates, not knowing if they actually work with the people who might be part of those meetings, but get them on the calendars now for like that, as soon as after December 13th is possible. So they're on the calendar. I could do that and just hopefully it all works out. Again, it would be 2 board members, right? Board president and legislative rep and I. And then I guess my question for you guys is, do you think we should meet as one big group or meet with like one meeting for the 8th, one for the 16th? I just don't know.
We've done them both ways, but it was when we had more time. And then we separated them out a little bit. But we've done them because of COVID, then we started doing Zooms. And then last year we did do them together. And sometimes not everybody can come. Sometimes they have to come and go. I'm not sure that it's better one way or the other, actually.
So this is not anything other than just timing. After the 13th, you have basically a week before Christmas. And then you have Christmas, the New Year. So you're compressing these meetings down to basically a 5-day window. Because after the first, they all go they'll be in Olympia on the 2nd, 3rd, getting ready for starting session on the 8th.
A couple of years ago.
So that's your,
a couple of years ago, they actually did one of them, it was when I was not the ledge rep, but they did one of them from Olympia. I do remember that. We had about a,
Well, they did it last year.
Yeah.
We had a couple.
Oh,
of
that's right, we did.
but
and we did actually go in person one time. This was a long time ago. And everybody, we sat around a table together and there were like 8 of them there. Not best way, but we got it done.
Again, this is nothing more than just timing. I would just knowing what I know about what these
Before people
schedules
get
look like,
sworn in,
it's an absolute, it's a train wreck trying to get this stuff in.
If I scheduled now for like December 14th, you know, I mean, be the, I don't know, and like and December 18th or something, to see if, you know, I think if they can meet, then it's just a matter of figuring out who's from here going to meet.
And then next year, you'll be able to do it much earlier.
It makes no, it truly makes no difference to me. I'm just.
I mean, there is
It's a
time
really
limit,
tight
but you
window.
can do about it.
Okay.
So, so the day that they're going to get sworn in
Yes,
is December 13th.
correct.
My question is, between the election and that day, even though they haven't been sworn in, can we agree on who the president's going to be?
No.
No, you
You
can't
can't
do
do
that
that.
outside of an open public meeting and
We
they
could
haven't
have
been
a-
sworn in yet.
Okay.
So you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can decide, I mean, this current board right now could decide who from the current board wanted to be in the meetings.
Or after the election's
Who's gonna
certified,
be, you know.
Can we add a
We
short
determine
meeting
that
to
after.
swear them in and do elections and then that's it? If you swore in and did elections like December 1st and that was the meeting, it's open to the public, everything's set, and then now you've got 2.5 weeks to make your appointments.
I still think though, honestly, given legislator calendars, it would be in our, even if we didn't know who was going to be in the meetings, we should get them on the
Yeah.
calendar. So I'm just thinking if they're
December 14th.
available, like there's probably,
December 14th,
if they
yeah,
could
do it.
say, hey, yeah, we're available December 14th
Do it.
and December
Yeah.
18th, then,
Sure.
you know, so why don't I start there? Why don't
Sure.
I start with just getting meetings on the calendar, and group meetings, okay? Like I just don't know if there's dynamics there that anybody
No, there's no
has.
dynamics. It's just gonna be a matter of trying to get 6 people.
Okay,
You'll have to have at
It'll be
least 2
3
meetings.
and
Okay.
3.
okay,
I would say be at least 2.
okay. So I'm just gonna try to find two dates after the 13th.
Yep.
Start there,
Uh-huh.
and I'll keep you updated, and then we'll
And
figure out who's gonna be in there.
they've usually been half-hour meetings. You could maybe do them semi-back-to-back, you know, if you had days where somebody said, I can only come on the 14th, I can only come on the
Yeah.
14th. And you could make that happen, whenever it's convenient for legislators.
Okay. Okay, and then, you know, both for the benefit, I think, of current, whoever, you know, is there from the current board and also for new board members, I gave you an example. I did kind of a white paper on the one issue to present to the Tri-Cities Council. It's the, you know, on state construction assistance program funding. But I think after the board passes the priorities document at the next meeting, I'm going to do a couple more, so that way
I thought that was
everybody
great.
has like
Yeah.
detail, and we can even give those. I know it's a lot of information, but that way whoever's in the room is, got some background
I think
information.
That's great. I appreciated you doing that.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, I think I have what I need, thank you.
I'll keep you busy.
What? That's not fair.
She's superwoman. She can take care of it.
All right.
All right.
Having no more business, we're going to call this meeting to a close.
Thank you.